Holy spoiler alert, Batman! Tiki here. And we are going to be doing a full The Batman spoiler breakdown with our good friends Rohith, Dharr. How you doing, Rohith?
I'm doing well.
Lazerdude.
I am not vengeance, but I'll do in a pinch.
And returning to the channel, Conner Nielson.
Oh, hi.
And of course, everyone's favorite Batman fan of So You Want to Be an Imagineer, Blue Dragon 5.
It's the Batman.
What? What is that?
Yeah, that's the theme of the movie. It's like the whole,
Oh, I see what you're doing. Okay.
The theme of the movie is it's the Batman.
Haven't you heard, Dragon? His name's Vengeance.
All right, anyway.
Batman's his middle name. He just goes by his
Okay,
Batman Wayne.
One quick joke I want to make with the whole vengeance thing is that I swear to God, the movie takes the vengeance thing so literally. This is not telling either way how I feel about the movie, but the vengeance thing is going to be a joke that I want to hit on with this spoiler cast, because it genuinely reminds me of like in The Rise of Skywalker, where it's like I made Snoke, and then you see the pickle jar and you're like, oh shit, he literally made Snoke. It's like, okay, Batman is literally calling himself Vengeance. All right,
where there's Snoke, there's fire.
I'll roll with that. Anyways,
I'm disagreeing with you right now. They're Tiki.
Okay, that's I don't know.
We'll get into it.
The vengeance thing is one of my big nitpicks for this. But anyways, so folks, before we get into it, I have story time because the lengths that I went to go to see this movie were kind of stupid. So I had a ticket for a 6:45 screening on Thursday night, and right around the time of the funeral scene, the projector started to crap out. But the funny thing is because the movie, we had the first person POV stuff with the eye cameras and everything, and the Riddler hacking stuff. At first we were like, wait a minute, like what's going on? Is this some sort of gimmick with the movie? Is it like the Riddler? But no, it was literally just like the whole projector went down, and we sat in the theater for like 20 minutes, and they were like, no, sorry, can't get it back up. So at that point, the whole day I had already had a migraine, and I was going into it like, okay, like, damn it, like I a 3-hour movie that sucks with a migraine. But I was into it though. As soon as the movie started, I was like, okay, you know what? I can deal with this. This is good. I'm getting into it. I'm getting into the world. I'm getting swept up in it. So when the first screening crashes, they offer us the option to either do another screening in a smaller theater or to refund the ticket purchase. And I was like, well, fuck, I'm really hyped up on this movie. I want to see it. And unfortunately, in that second screening, I got about as far as the Penguin car chase. But with my migraine and having to go out into the lobby and, kind of the stress of the film shutting down, the migraine just kind of came back full force. I swear it was one of those situations where it's like I almost physically had to leave the theater because the migraine was getting so bad because of all the stress involved in that. So yeah, I tried to go see The Batman 2 different times on Thursday night, and I failed both times. I swear to God, that must be some kind of a record. Anyways, when I did get around to seeing this, I do think this is genuinely like top tier Batman. Not sure how you guys are feeling about it. This might be unpopular to say in this panel. I don't know, but Robert Pattinson just absolutely blew me away. I freaking love his performance. I think this is like one of the few times that a Batman movie has the actual Batman being the most interesting thing about it, even though that's not to say any of the other elements aren't interesting, because Paul Dano delivers the probably the scariest Batman villain that we've ever seen on screen, I think. Of course, Colin Farrell's a lot of fun. I will say with my nitpicks in this movie, and probably the thing that's like, I'm not quite at the level of putting this above The Dark Knight just yet. I think this is a better Batman movie than The Dark Knight. just as far as like adapting the comic material, having it feel very, very close in line with the comics. This essentially is the closest thing that we've had to a Batman graphic novel in film form. I just think The Dark Knight is still the slightly better film overall. But I don't know. But my big nitpick does kind of come down to Catwoman. I think Zoe Kravitz does a great job in the role. I just think her plot is like, it's the one thing that I would kind of trim down from the 3-hour runtime. I wasn't crazy. I didn't really think it gelled all that well with the rest of it. Honestly, some of it kind of feels like we could have saved it for the sequel, maybe. Felt a little bit too crowded there. I think some of the distribution of screen time is a little bit wonky. I think some of the pacing is a little bit wonky. Unfortunately, I hate to say it, but I don't think the 3-hour runtime was completely necessary. I do think there's, as far as the pacing goes, there is stuff that you could trim out of this thing. But I mean, hell, let's call a spade a spade. This thing, it's atmospheric as hell. It's like wonderfully directed. I honestly think the score might be one of my new favorite scores for a superhero movie or just any movie, period, that I've heard in a long time. I mean, there is way more to love about this movie, and the nitpicks I have are simply because I'm like, okay, I have to get to the brass tacks. This or Dark Knight, I have to really tip the scales one way or another here.
Well, not really.
So
You
the
don't
fact
have
that this is
to.
even in the conversation for the Dark Knight is, that just says a lot. All right, let's see. I'll throw it over to, you know what? We heard from Rohith and Lazerdude, not about their opinions on this movie, but we saw them in the debate. So I'm going to throw it over to Conner next. Conner, what do you think of this?
Oh, good heavens. Hot seat. Okay. So it's interesting you were talking about the experience of watching it, Tiki, because for my work, I get up at 5 a.m. and I'm usually routinely sleepy after work.
Yeah.
So I was like, this movie's 3 hours long. My brother got us tickets for 7:30 p.m. So the Wednesday night, I slept 11 hours and I was drinking coffee throughout Thursday day. So I was wired. I was like, I am awake. I am just completely ready to just watch a movie. So I feel like I had a really good experience watching this, and I absorbed pretty much everything. I'm sure if I watch it another 2-3 times, I might pick up on stuff that I maybe never noticed or have a different read on or whatever. But as is, here's my kind of read on it. I think the first 10 minutes of this movie is breathtaking. It is overall, the entire movie is very immersive, and it is made with a craft and a skill and a vision. And I think once it leaves the first 10 minutes, it's pretty good. Well, and this is kind of where it becomes.
So it's like the Wall-E of superhero, or I'm sorry, not the Wall-E, the Up of superhero movies.
Get out of here! Up is a top 10 all-time movie. Get out of here!
Okay.
No, Up makes me cry even after.
Hey, I don't disagree with you. I'm just saying, married life is the obvious high point.
I would say him flipping through the adventure book is.
That's the other big one for me. That's the other.
And the Ellie badge. Don't forget the Ellie badge.
Yeah.
Ellie badge. You have him talking with Russell and finding out that his parents are divorced. You know what? Up is legit.
All right, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you
back.
with the Up thing.
I'm sorry.
Turn the Batmobile around, please.
Anyways, yeah. Let the record show I did not derail that. Okay, so anyways, I think that what Matt Reeves is going for here is he is going for quantity and quality. It feels like his vision is that he wants to make the Batman movie that everybody kind of already has in their head that's never been put on screen before. And so there's all these elements that we think of when we think of Batman. You think of, Batmobile, the police, gangsters, gothic architecture, Catwoman, Bat Signal. You have all of these things, right, that are Batman-y and in a tone and a style. And what we've had in the past is we'll have a director like a Tim Burton or a Christopher Nolan or a Zack Snyder where they have those elements that they like more than other elements, and they kind of lean into that because they're looking at the Batman property, and they're like, okay, what parts of this, what elements here kind of click with my style more than any others. And I think when you look at the previous incarnations of Batman, obviously you can tell Tim Burton made his Batman movies, and you can tell that Christopher Nolan made those Batman movies, and Snyder made, he never made a solo Batman movie, but like BVS, like those Batman-y elements feel very Snydery and Batman-y. And so what I feel like Reeves is doing here is he's kind of taking himself out of the equation and wanting to just sort of present Batman more than the Matt Reeves Batman. Not to say there aren't like distinct, identifiable Reeves elements. There are, but he is more interested in presenting the consummate comic booky Batman the way that like Batman the Animated Series or the Arkham games are more there to present the Batman, all of it at once. And I sort of had this weird experience watching it where everything about this is well made, and there's a version of me that loved the crap out of this, but the version you're talking to right now did not love the crap out of this. I still really liked it, though. I think it just kind of came down to, I realized while watching it, I prefer it rather when a filmmaker comes in and puts their own spin on it, and you can tell more about the director and how they connect with the character just through their interpretation of it. So I personally still prefer all three of the Nolan films over this. I prefer the 66 Batman over this. I prefer Mask of the Phantasm over this. But I think this edges out just barely the first Tim Burton movie, and it's absolutely better than any of the other 90s Batman movies.
Well, that
are live action. So I would say thumbs up. I like it, and I'm looking forward to kind of getting into the nitty gritty.
Okay. All right, I'll throw it to Lazerdude.
Yeah, this movie was definitely an experience that was like, I was going into it, I'm just always wondering, like, how are they going to do this differently? What are they going to change from it? What are they going to keep from the other movies that they've done, and what are they going to adapt, and how are they going to make it their own? I do feel that I said this in my review. I came across, I was thinking, is like, this feels to me like a movie version similar to telling the story similar to the way that the animated series would tell of its stories. The Bruce Wayne stuff is very muted. There's not really a lot of focus on Bruce Wayne, and when it is, it's really about him being Batman. It's not about his social life or who his girlfriend is or what he has to do. Bruce Wayne isn't the character, Batman is. And so that was an interesting take on it. It took me a little bit to get used to. Like, he's in this suit, I would say, more than anybody else has been in the suit in a movie in one go. Like most of the time, Christian Bale is not in the Batman suit, but then he does don it. This one, Robert Pattinson is 90, well, maybe not 90, but he's like 70 to 80% in the suit the whole time. And which is a good thing, that this suit is probably my favorite version of the Batman suit. I just want to say that right there. This Batman suit looks absolutely incredible. The way they have it, like, taking bullets, like it's flipping made out of, Superman, but
yeah, we skinned Superman alive. It's made out of Kryptonian.
Skinned Superman and made a suit out of him, but still, yeah. But my point is, like, it's soaked up. It doesn't matter because it looks really cool. There is a lot of stuff that I did find enjoyable in this. I did find myself comparing a lot of things to the previous movies. Like, it's interesting because I asked myself, if this one came out after Batman and Robin, would I be having these same questions? Like, I don't think I would. Like, the questions I'm asking is, like, how did he get trained? Where did he get his gadgets? All this other stuff. Like how does he develop them? And I don't think I would ever really ask those questions until Christopher Nolan made the, Batman Begins, and we get all of that beautifully explained, where part of me is wondering about that. But I do like that there is a difference in the way that this movie presents itself and its world. It is a lot more accurate feeling to the comic book Batman. I will agree that it doesn't try to necessarily be Tim Burton's Batman or Christopher Nolan's Batman. It tries to be Batman because the way it handles stuff, like Batman's on a crime scene and all the police are there watching him on the crime scene. No one's like, arrest this guy, get him off of here. What the heck is he doing here? They're just like, oh, this guy, Gordon, what is he doing here? Come on, Gordon. You know, like that's something that feels more of the Batman the Animated Series style, where like Harvey Bullock is there, just like, come on, Gordon, we gotta trust this freak,
like in Laughing Fish or something. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. The similar style of that, where instead, like, he's still a vigilante, but he's not like a wanted criminal like he would be in the real world. It drops an element of realism, not completely, but enough that it feels like its own world. I will say the world of Gotham looks good. I don't think it's as developed as it could have been in the past, but it does have a lot of atmosphere in it. The Riddler was an interesting thing because I was with him by the end of the movie. I don't like his outfit. I'm just going to say that right down. He looks like he's in a gimp suit. It is not something that is like, oh yeah, that definitely speaks like the Riddler. Not that they had to have him in the full Riddler garb or in like Jim Carrey's tights or anything like that. But I would have preferred something that felt a little bit more Riddler to me, where this feels like it could be any psycho from Criminal Minds, you know? But overall, I did enjoy the film. It was a long movie. It did kind of in two ways feel like almost two different movies. It felt like there were two different plots, the Carmine Falcone plot and the Riddler plot going on. But in the end, I enjoyed both of them. And I will say that it goes on for a while, and there's some stuff that is just like, okay, that was a little rushed. Like Alfred doesn't get the screen time that I would have liked him in this movie. He's basically sidelined after the first half hour. Well, maybe I don't know the actual time, but it's like he has only like one or two scenes, and then he's sidelined, and then has like one more scene near the middle end of the film, and then he's like, that's it. And so because it's putting so much in there, there's not as much that we're able to develop all these characters. It's definitely a lot of quantity in there, but here's hoping that it's opening the door for more development in the future.
All right, Rohith.
So I was, this is probably the most anticipated film, like at least in the superhero genre for this year. And watching the movie, and what I came away with is a few things. One, the movie is incredibly atmospheric, and that's all in part to Matt Reeves' direction, the director of photography being Greg Fraser, and the use of colors and shadows being magnificent, especially in the first 10 minutes, as Connor highlighted before, Michael Giacchino's score, and the performances by the cast. I think it takes a lot of elements, a lot of story beats from other Bat media that I wanted to see show up in the films, and it showed up here. And I'll get into it more when we get into sort of the meat and bones of the story elements. In terms of the flaws or nitpicks, things that stand out to me is that a particular part of the Catwoman story arc, I think, could have been trimmed down a bit. Like specifically in regards to like finding this one character that ultimately, gets resolved, not anticlimactically, but just gets resolved, and the amount of time that's spent on that particular part of her story arc could have just been cut down and trimmed. Certain shots are a little janky. Alfred doesn't get as much screen time in the film, and so not to say that what he's had is bad, but I just don't get much of a sense of his character as I do with all the other actors and their characters. And I think there is a critique to be made about there being like multiple endings near the end. And I didn't really feel that coming out of it, but the more I think about it, the more I discuss about it, I think could be an issue upon rewatch. However, ultimately, it is a great Batman film that does the things that I think a lot of Batman fans wanted to see. A lot of particular story elements, themes, and all that come into fruition in a live action context. And I'm very excited for where things will go. Another critique, another flaw is that where the movie ends, I don't like the tease that is made at the end. And I will get into way more detail
But there's a multiple ending kind of thing with it.
Well, I'm talking about the tease that a specific piece. Yeah. So
I like the casting there, but I agree it was totally unnecessary.
I was happy that the 66 Pokedex was filled out, but I was disappointed by the scene. Yeah.
Best end credit scene ever, though, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I was so happy with it. It was great.
My wife was not. She was like, "You made me stay for that? What a waste of time."
Oh, poor wife.
All right, we have someone in the comments who is absolutely not John Kelling. They say, I have a theory that if Bruce actually took care of Bruce Wayne's shit, he would have noticed the sketchy numbers with the renewal fund long before the Riddler did.
Yes.
We'll get into the Bruce Wayne side of things.
That feels like... Sorry, never mind. I'll shut up.
Okay. All right. Anything else, Rohith?
No, that's it for me for my overall impressions.
All right, Dragon. I'm genuinely super curious about how you felt about this.
All right. So I got to be honest. I think this has probably been the most arm's length. Well, with one exception, not counting Begins. I'd say in a long time, this has been like the most arm's length I've gone into any Batman movie with, like, at least knowing that it was like an entity. Batman Begins, I just kind of stumbled upon back. Oh yeah, we're doing a Batman movie. That's it. So knowing that, okay, there's a Batman movie coming, you see the first trailer, and I've been pretty much on lights out ever since. Just trying to kind of lay low on a lot of stuff. So I really went into this rather clean. The end result, I mean, I went in this a little worried, just from what I've seen. Just like the biggest fear I had going into this was angsty Batman. Like, oh god, what if we do angsty Batman? What if we just lean into that? Because there was a bit in what I did see of stuff I tried to avoid. There's like a little bit where it was like, out of context, does not play well at all. In the movie, plays a lot better. Where it's just like, yeah, okay, we see Pattinson Batman as we're hype up a big interrogation scene, and he just like punches the window. Tell me what you know. It's like, oh god.
Oh god.
It's like, what do you know? It's like, oh god. It's like,
What do you know?
So that's what I'm saying. So that did not instill confidence, and again, just kind of reaffirmed. Okay, I got to go into this lights out. I can't watch anymore. I just got to get back down the hatches. We're gonna see how it is. We're gonna see how it is. So the end result.
Down the hatches.
Yep, because there's a storm coming. So the end result, I thought this was great. There was no Phantasm by any stretch. I mean, let's be honest. No, Phantasm's like an impossible standard to reach, so it's no Phantasm. And in regards to live action, I don't think it's quite the game changer that the game changing classic of a Begins or a Dark Knight was, but definitely the most comic book inspired Batman in live action yet, unequivocally. Mm-hmm. This is like the most most comic pulls than ever we've done there. I mean, before, the closest we've ever really been like in a direct like pull was BVS with like Dark Knight Returns, and still we saw how that went. So this is still like the most we've pulled things that they made sense and they actually were applied to the story in a way that kind of worked. I do have issues with it. I got some. I think in the grand scheme, I got minor issues with it, but. Mainly, I gotta be honest, mainly with the Riddler's plot. And given not John Kelling's comment, he might have caught something that I didn't, so I'm not sure. Again, I think barring a rewatch, this major problem I'm kind of having with the film might be solved. But I had minor issues here and there, and just kind of some plot stuff with the Riddler I kind of question. And in some regards, it's kind of like, well, I like our climax. I'm not sure what gets us there necessarily. But ultimately, this is absolutely the direction we should go with. Should go in with Batman. I think this direction overall has been like, yeah, why weren't we doing this sooner? And I think ultimately, coming out of this movie, it's kind of a matter of, why didn't we do this sooner? Look at how good this was. Why didn't the industry do this sooner? And it kind of makes me think, is it too late to capitalize on this? On this momentum, like in a trilogy, like on this great momentum we've built. Like, I definitely want to see a trilogy of this, but it makes you wonder, man, there's so much we could do with this, but just doing it in 3 films now at this point in time, I mean, I know, can we make the right decisions? I mean, we're doing a bunch of supplemental series and spin-offs that are kind of feeding into this universe. So
I'm worried about the spin-offs and stuff. I mean, I'm one of the few people who has not watched Peacemaker yet, so I know, but I don't know. We'll have to see how that goes.
Well, my point is so far based on the film delivering and like, okay, so we're going to get more to feed into this universe. It sounds like, in theory, okay, I think our world building we don't have to necessarily worry about there not being enough movies with this universe if we do kind of supplement the lack of movies with series that could maybe fill in the blanks and expand.
Yeah, but I do want the trilogy, though. I'm with you there on wanting the trilogy.
That's what I'm saying. I absolutely see where we can build. At the end of this movie, I'm excited for more, and the fact that, again, it kind of gives you that daunting thought of like, oh God, there's so much we could do, but there's so little time, and we spent so many other franchises and like wrong directions here and there of like, we wasted all these Snyder movies and stuff we could have done with things here.
Right.
And it's like, oh God, is there enough time? But I don't know, the series are kind of giving me hope that, maybe we can make up for that lost time in a new way and with a new tool we did not have at our disposal previously. Who knows?
All right.
So, yeah, it's not perfect, but it's quite good.
Okay, so yeah, I want to start at that opening. The Riddler kill is a good kind of creepy opening, but I think the thing that everyone is talking about for good reason is the opening monologue.
Yeah,
because I totally agree with you guys. When it started, I was so in it. I was just like, oh, this is exactly what I wanted the Batman to be on screen.
Yeah, go on.
What was great was when the monologue started. It's like, oh man, like Matt Reeves took like one of the elements of Frank Miller's work on Batman being like the internal monologue that's like very purple prose, very noir-esque.
Very year one.
Yeah. And
this is my city.
Yeah, and put that on the screen, and it wasn't corny. It didn't come off as like hokey. It just fit. And the monologue going over sort of the shots of Gotham City that are well composed and well lit by Greg Fraser and like the Giacchino score just sold me on the vision of Gotham. It sold me on Batman, this particular version, being like a terror that haunts, the city.
I think we incorporated. Oh, I'm sorry. What do you got, buddy?
Sorry, I was just gonna say, for me, the best part is where he says how he can't be everywhere at once, but it's like, but his fear can. And we see all these different criminals just look into a dark spot, and you can tell that all of them are dreading with fear. Maybe he's there. Maybe he's watching me. Maybe he is. And then in one of those dark alleys, he is watching, and he comes out and just wrecks everybody. Oh, it's so good.
You as the audience can really like kind of tell that fear. It's like you're kind of like almost inserted into the criminal's point of view at that point.
Yeah.
It's like almost like overstimulating and overwhelming. I found like the word I would use to best describe this opening is immersive. And that just kind of comes down to all of just like the meat and potatoes elements of filmmaking, like production design, cinematography, sound design, musical score, like acting, all of it. And what I also like is just the very basic storytelling that is able to convey such a powerful feeling. You have them looking into the darkness, but they also are looking up into the light in the sky, and they see the bat signal. And it's a really cool subversion that they do where you look up and you see like a police helicopter, and then the police helicopter, moves away to reveal the bat signal. Like all that stuff is just so tasteful and like smart, and I loved it.
Now, what I really like about sort of the beginning is that I think back to sort of how Nolan's, like, not to say one is better or the other, but what's interesting is that Nolan's like vision of Gotham and Batman, it's very sort of sleek and not futuristic, but sleek and modern. Like sort of James Bond level of craft, which makes sense because Nolan's such a huge James Bond fan. Whereas the beginning for Matt Reeves, like it very much feels very like grunge, punk rock, like very sort of how it's sort of visually how I'd imagine Darren Aronofsky would direct a Batman movie. There's a lot of like dirt. There's a lot of sort of like muddiness. It's unclean. You feel claustrophobic in it.
Yeah,
Did anybody else think that they should have kept the narration going throughout the whole movie?
That's interesting because I think it works as far as a bookend goes.
I was just interested because we're seeing most of the movie through his eyes as Batman. We're not getting a lot of insight on his inner thinkings as Bruce Wayne. You know, we're not seeing a lot of that, and I thought that hearing some inner narration might have helped get us a little bit more into the character's head.
All right,
but it could have also just ended up being hokey as well.
Well, so I think what like the intent of there. I think if I had to place a bet, I would say we will get more inner monologue, throughout the films as we make sequels, because what the story of this movie really is, it's about Batman learning the importance of Bruce Wayne. And so there's such a lack of Bruce Wayne in this movie. Like, he's barely out of the costume, and a lot of this is him kind of learning about, like, a lot of the stuff that he's fighting, he wouldn't need to necessarily fight if he was kind of up to task as Bruce. Like, his father's legacy is sort of like physically manifested as like the renewal fund, and that's sort of been taken from like his family and like used as a front, and there's like all these things. And even when he is Bruce Wayne and he's like, I think the scene where he has the most to do as Bruce is where he's at the funeral, and he's basically just acting like Batman, where he's just kind of walking around and stopping and looking for clues basically, and he's not there as Bruce. And so he's just allowed Bruce to become this obsolete human, this husk who just kind of exists as a vessel for Batman. And by the end of it, he learns that, they don't come out and say it, but I feel like they do everything but. And he learns to embrace Bruce Wayne. And I think with that monologue, I think it's meant to be the voice of Bruce, and we don't get a lot of it. And I think it's because there's not a lot of Bruce yet. And I think we'll see Bruce grow throughout these films.
I don't. Before we get to the Bruce stuff, just let me say this much, and I want to make a point about the opening. I think we're absolutely going to get more Bruce Wayne in a sequel. I don't necessarily think he realizes that in his arc. I think it's still he's kind of in Batman's shoes by the end of the arc. I don't think it's like we're necessarily getting a lot of Bruce out of there. But
I disagree. I think we can get into that later. Yeah.
Okay, so real quick, let me say this. So what I really liked about the opening, again, outside of kind of the year one journal narration of it all, which is great. I love the correlation of the bat signal and the shadows, and how the bat signal essentially is kind of light in correlation with the shadows of the city, and how he's like weaponizing fear and paranoia against the superstitious and cowardly lot of criminals, which is great. And anyone who is unafraid, they're going to get a severe beatdown, and quite possibly with our possibly, just given what we kind of tee up later, a Joker's gang of sorts, because no one really knows what the deal with those guys are. And again, we've established there was a run with a clown that may have maybe inspired some.
Can I throw out one thing about the Joker gang that I really, really liked from a visual storytelling point of view, really quick?
Well, again, we're assuming they're a Joker gang, but go on.
I really, really dug the fact that the whole thing was like an initiation for the one kid who had like half of his face painted.
Yeah.
And I dug the symbolism of that, where it's like that kid is like half into the world of crime. And really that scene to me is like almost as much about Batman saving that kid from the life of crime.
Yeah.
Is about him saving the civilian.
So let me piggyback and get back to the whole Bruce Wayne thing we were kind of on the track of with that, Tiki. So with that, I think the point of this movie, the big thematic arc that I really loved in this movie was it's Batman. Essentially, Batman's on the arc of, it's a story of Batman transitioning from urban legend into an inspiring figure, and that he's going to inspire. Basically, it's like Batman needs to step up. He needs to be a lot more in regards to being an inspiring figure. Instead,
he needs to carry the torch, if you will.
Sure. Instead of being like just an agent of vengeance, he needs to be something. He needs to be a symbol. He needs to be something inspiring, essentially.
Yeah.
So I like that. I like how that's in correlation with how the Riddler has been inspired by Batman, but inspired by the vengeance and the violence of it all, and how that's going awry, and how that's kind of poisoned what Batman's trying to do. So I love all of that. But in regards to the Bruce Wayne thing, though, so Pattinson, my thoughts on Pattinson, because again, I went into this as fearing the angsty Batman thing. I was very won over by him.
This is a super angsty Batman, but I love it.
Yeah, that's the thing. So I'm won over by him as Batman. Bruce Wayne, not so much. I think I'll be frank, he might be the worst Bruce Wayne we've ever had on film. He might be.
Hey, hold on. I think this is the time to bring up John Kelling's comment, which I completely agree with. There isn't a Bruce Wayne right now. Even when he was out in public, he's still Batman, scanning the funeral for potential Riddler suspects.
Now,
I dig the fact that in Pattinson's performance, there is a lack of humanity. There's almost like, not sociopathic. That's certainly not the right word, but very much a tunnel vision there. It's like he is so dedicated to the mission that it's like, Dragon. It's almost like, I don't know. I was really captivated by it. I love the idea of the eye cameras too, and one of the big kind of
eye cameras are great.
Yeah, it's a Court of Owls pool, by the way.
One of the big wow moments for me, and I was watching this with my dad, and we both kind of like leaned into each other, was when you first see him without the suit, and he's got like the eyeshadow on and everything, and he looks just so haggard. And my dad and I both just leaned into each other, and we were just like, wow, he looks messed up, dude. Like, I love that. Like, he's just like an emotionally stunted individual. And I think this arc, this movie is literally giving him that emotional drive.
Well, yeah.
So I'm totally fine with the lack of humanity in Bruce Wayne, because like I said, I feel like this whole movie is kind of like exploring his tunnel vision.
Well, no, here's the problem. I don't necessarily disagree with that, Tiki. My problem is this. Like, I just to the early point that was made, I love that there was more the whole 80% of Batman. I love there's more Batman than Bruce Wayne in the film, because it's overdue that we kind of do a story like that. Now, let me put it this way. I don't think I get that Matt Reeves doesn't want to do Playboy Bruce Wayne. Doesn't want to do like kind of the Bon Vivant thing, because we've seen that before, especially with the Christian Bale Batman, even with the BB.
I totally agree. I found it super refreshing that we didn't get a Playboy Bruce Wayne, especially because with Robert Pattinson, they could have leaned into it if they wanted to.
But here's where I come down. Here's why I have an issue with the Bruce Wayne. It's that I don't think the fact that it's, even if you use the old kind of the classic Kevin Conroy Batman sort of thing, where, Bruce Wayne's the mask, or ultimately, even if he isn't Bruce Wayne, he's acting as Batman, that kind of ties into a little bit of the 0 year stuff where, it's Bruce Wayne trying not to be part of society and just trying to focus in on the mission with the brownstone and everything, which we visualize with our Batcave here. That's all fine and dandy. My problem with that is that all of that is not an excuse to abandon any Bruce Wayne stuff at all, in which we had like, hey, Alfred's bringing up, hey, you got like a business meeting and stuff, and like the mayor's hitting him up for money at a funeral, which, by the way, is really skeezy if you ask me. It's like she's like the mayoral candidate lady. It's like, hey, listen, you're not doing enough. You should contribute to my campaign. Like, I'm here for a funeral.
I'm at a funeral, lady.
I don't know about you. Death kind of means something to me.
Also,
let me tell the press about this.
It's the funeral of your opponent, so you don't really have much competition waiting. You don't really
it's really ballsy that she shows up.
Yeah,
to the funeral.
I'm glad he's dead.
Well,
yes.
I think that's like good quote unquote politics, or just good behavior.
It is.
Just try not to smile.
It's also it's total power.
I do want to sort of respond to your comment. So I get where you're coming from, and I think the movie's aware of that and uses that to be a detriment and fault of Bruce Wayne / Batman. As the non-John Killing mentioned about, had he been actively engaged as Bruce Wayne, he would have noticed about the renewal funds and the whole corruption element of it. The fact that he didn't is a lesson for Bruce to learn and to grow and mature as an individual.
I will say, sorry, you can keep going.
And that's where I think Matt Reeves is going. It's like we all like and appreciate and want more Batman, but I think in terms of the storytelling, in terms of the theme, he's establishing a want and a need for why Bruce Wayne is important to not just his sense of self-worth, the sense of humanity, but to the people of Gotham. And I think the story helps to sort of deliver on them, says Steve Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, and that's, and I feel like the way Matt Reeves sort of kind of presents this character through line is we have that recurring visual motif of Bruce looking at the mayor's orphaned son.
Yes.
We get it off the bat.
That was like one of the big moments for me early on where I'm like, this movie understands this character entirely.
Tell me how great a moment was it when Alfred saw that on the camera and he got, okay, I'm going to help him out on this.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
I loved everything about that visual motif.
Yeah.
I will say, part of me was just like, that mother goes, he would make a good sidekick.
So he goes full all-star Batman and Robin on it.
I will say,
I wasn't finished with my point.
Yeah, someone's making a point. Go on.
The visual motif begins with him at the crime scene, seeing the kid.
Yeah,
and then it develops as he's at the funeral and he like saves him from getting hit,
which is great. I love when he saved that kid at the funeral.
Yeah. But then it ends. The payoff to it is when he understands like that he hasn't been embracing Bruce Wayne. He has now learned the importance of Bruce Wayne, and so he like lights the flare, and then when he reaches out his arm, the one who reaches out and grabs his hand is that boy. Mm-hmm. That's like it's like we get this through line where now he is like embracing Bruce Wayne. He's embracing. He's allowing that connection with that child. And, on the inside, he's allowing himself to connect with that child of Bruce Wayne that he kind of rejected. And
remember how we recontextualized that kid, though, too.
What?
Remember how we recontextualized the relationship with that kid by the end, too, because he realizes he's somewhat, depending on how you look at it, he's somewhat culpable for that kid's situation because he inspired the Riddler.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 100%. So
I will say, I do feel like there's one scene missing. Like there should be a scene where maybe it cuts from the news crew. That Gotham News is like so on it. They're on like every story in a heartbeat.
They are.
But there should be like a scene where just like Bruce Wayne has stepped out of his shadow and is donating money to help rebuild the city. An exorbitant amount, and then it cuts to Alfred's like, I thought Bruce Wayne was dead, and it's like, I've realized that I can't save the city just as Batman. He needs a little help, something like that.
No, I feel like that would be coming out and spelling it out too much, and I feel like that visual motif says all that without needing the dialogue to put it out.
I just feel like a little bit of acknowledgement would have gone to like complete the arc, because as it stands, like as far as we know, Bruce Wayne is still a recluse.
Okay.
So honestly, I think we might be kind of inching towards here, at least where it is for me with all this, is that ultimately I think the best usage of Bruce Wayne in the film per se, and Bruce Wayne specifically, is the Wayne family plot is really good, and using Bruce Wayne as a target, all that stuff I really liked. And it's just the problem that because I think we're absolutely setting up room to grow with Bruce Wayne. I think he is going to take the lesson you're saying away from the next one. I don't think we necessarily put like a maybe spelled out point. I like the thematic thing you're building there and the connecting there. I'm just saying and I think just looking at it, because there are a number of things people looked at this movie and they're noticing, and it's the fact that people are just kind of watching this and they're kind of saying like, well, you know what? Kind of our early Batman stuff might be rubbing some people the wrong way. Okay, well, yeah, there's not much Bruce Wayne, and also Batman doesn't really foil the Riddler. He doesn't really stop the Riddler. Riddler pretty much gets away with everything he does in this movie, except killing the mayoral candidate for reasons that escape me, which I guess we'll get to.
Well, but, he was shooting a lot of people, and like he stops a lot of like a mass shooting.
That's what I'm saying. That's like the one feather in Batman's cap this movie in terms of stopping the Riddler. Which again, I like it. Don't get me wrong. I love Batman saving people. That was awesome.
But it's all about like the message of the movie is that Batman without Bruce Wayne is effectively pointless. Like, it's not pointless, but he isn't effective enough. He doesn't do what needs to be done because he hasn't embraced Bruce Wayne yet. And
so I wonder how much that's like a long con thing to fully appreciate, I guess is what I'm saying. Like, do you think we need another movie to prove that Bruce Wayne point that really fully established the
I guess I don't need another movie because that's the message I got from the movie. You know what I mean? Like, just looking at it as a piece, like, I don't need another explanation because that's just how I'm reading it personally.
Yeah. Also, Blue Dragon, to sort of respond to your point about he didn't really foil Riddler, the thing is that the two main like influences that Matt Reeves cites, like David Fincher's Seven and David Fincher's Zodiac, both movies, the detectives in there don't really, foil the crimes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they sort of it's not really like the thing is for those movies. It's not about
In Seven, the John Doe literally just walks into the police station and gives himself up.
Well, I want to be clear. I don't have a problem. I'm just saying this is like the main complaint I'm hearing lobbied against the film everywhere is like the whole like, well, it didn't stop the Riddler. I could sense that in the movie until the 0 year moment happened. It was like, oh yeah, well at least we get to have get a win in there. But yeah, it's kind of like that. Yeah, I think it's Batman in the early years where there's something missing, which again I think as Conner is well established here, is Bruce Wayne ultimately. He needs to be a symbol. He needs to kind of be more active.
What's really interesting for this version of Batman is that it's very much heavily taking influence from not just like Year One or Long Halloween or 0 Year, but also like Batman Telltale and Batman Earth One.
There is a lot of Earth One and Telltale in this.
Yeah, Telltale for sure. Like they didn't go the full Telltale route where he was like the Waynes were like a crime family, but yeah, I was surprised at how much comic book accuracy that they did with a lot of this, like with
made Martha
Selena
and
Kyle's father being Carmine Falcone, which I just want to say I didn't even recognize that as Jonathan Turturro for the most part.
Really?
Well, at first, yeah. Like at first, I didn't. A couple of scenes later, I was like, "Oh, that's who that is." Maybe because I wasn't expecting Carmine Falcone to be in this movie, let alone.
I didn't even know he was going to be in it, let alone be played by someone like Turturro. So that was a surprise for me too.
Yeah, it was kind of surprising not seeing him shout at everybody all the time and like wear a Speedo and like stand below a robot. Like it was really
be a below
cool
robot scrotum or something.
Yeah. yeah.
It's interesting how Falcone is depicted this movie because, and especially his relationship with Selena. Because I think back to how his main claim to fame in like Batman Mythos is the Long Halloween. Yeah. And the Long Halloween, like he's sort of like the Vito Corleone, like evil gangster, but he has a bit of honor and ability to his character. And like the thing is, in that story and in like the spinoff to it, Catwoman When in Rome, it's very ambiguous whether or not Catwoman is actually like Carmine Falcone's daughter.
Yeah.
Then this, that's connection explicitly confirmed.
Yeah.
And also in this movie, he's a lot more like slimier and sleazier. Like he's more like Tony Soprano than like Vito Corleone.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I really love in our kind of plotting of everything. I love how everything is Falcone is at the center of the web. Like everything kind of connects to him. Like everything. I love that.
I will say the riddle that led to him didn't make any sense.
Oh, I totally agree.
Wait, so you guys were crazy about the whole Larata thing.
The rat with wings. Well, it's not me. The penguin. It's a rat with... No, it's not. Falcon. That's the rat with... No, it's not. Big Bird. He's a rat. like, come on, man. Like, that doesn't make any sense.
But, aside from that, though, Batman's detective work in this film was amazing. I loved all the detective work.
That's one thing I don't have against it. The other detective stuff is great.
Again, so much detective work with Gordon, by the way. There was Jeffrey Wright was really great as Jim Gordon, and getting to do some buddy very Seven-esque detective work was really cool.
I will say with Jeffrey Wright, I still think that Gary Oldman is the definitive James Gordon on screen.
Yeah.
But I do think this might be the best Batman Gordon dynamic that we've had. Just as far as their working relationship with each other.
Mm-hmm.
I actually like that there's like a subtle air of distrust between the two of them because it's so early on.
Yeah.
Like Gordon is like he's going along with the Batman, but he's not entirely on the Batman side with everything he does yet.
But again, there's definitely there's trust. Like when he's surrounded, he's not giving up on him when he's it's never like that year one distance of if you get caught, I can't help.
Yeah, totally.
Like if he gets, we have that really tense scene where Batman's in a cage, like surrounded by cops, and Gordon's basically saving his bacon. You punch me in the face, take the keys, and leave. So this is great. Love that police station escape. It was awesome. Yeah. Okay. It was really refreshing. It was, and again, yeah, go on.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think because the movie is juggling so many things, for most of the characters in this, I don't think they're ever going to be the best version of the character because we don't have enough time to develop
That's fair.
To deal with them, but they're all very well done. you know, there wasn't any character where I was like, well, that wasn't even good. Even Catwoman with this stuff is that with her, even though it was rushed and everything, but at least they're not like spouting "I love you" or anything like.
We gave him a lot
Batman
more time
Returns.
than the Anne Hathaway Catwoman, though. You got to give them that. We gave him a lot more time for that relationship to develop.
And at least I felt like she was more actually trying to be like Catwoman. Like she was making things like comments like, "Hey, the bat and the cat has a nice ring to it." Where like Anne Hathaway never calls herself Catwoman, never refers to. I don't even think we even see her with a cat in the whole movie. The only thing that Anne Hathaway has is that her goggles kind of look like cat ears when she puts them up.
Right.
Anyway, but yeah, I want to say that I think maybe I don't Tegan and I probably I think disagree with this based on our opening thoughts here. I thought Zoe Kravitz was a standout. She felt very on brand with early Catwoman, particularly. I thought again, one, she looks great. Again, I like that we had time to build that chemistry. They went from sparring.
I honestly think that out of all the stuff here, the Catwoman and Batman stuff, like I like the performance for sure. It's no Michelle Pfeiffer. Like,
but it made a lot more sense than Michelle Pfeiffer, though.
I'm just saying, as far as the performance
maybe the cats gave her cat powers.
Michelle Pfeiffer will always be my Catwoman. As far I'm just kind of biased that way.
Can you guys help me out? Because like I with like what you guys mean by your dissatisfaction with the Catwoman side of things, because I thought it was all pretty good. Or at least it checked out. Like I don't know. Like
here's my thing is that I think it's all good. I just think this movie is going out of its way to kind of like reinvent the wheel on a lot of stuff, and I feel like with the Batman and Catwoman stuff, even though it's good, there's a little bit of a sense, for me at least, of kind of just going through the motions.
Okay, it's interesting you say that because
here's the biggest problem with almost every version of Batman and Catwoman that isn't great is the fact that it's a lot of Catwoman being extremely seductive and Batman just standing there. You know, like Batman's just standing there and taking it, and you know he's trying not to give up any ground, so he's just being stern and everything, but he doesn't really engage her in conversation all that much. Where like Batman the animated series, they have scenes where they are being flirtatious with each other. Like Batman is flirting back. It's subtle. It's not as over the top as Selina, but that's just because he's not that type of character. But I do think that there's moments like that happen with this where Robert Pattinson is just kind of standing there. But they do have some back and forth. I like the fight at the beginning where he's just like, "Oh, you're pretty good at that." Then she just it goes all out on him and stuff.
I mean, him pulling the bat entrance on her is really funny. I mean,
By the way, I really like how we have really creative uses of the bat entrance and exits.
Yeah.
In this movie,
when he exits, when he pulls the bat exit on Gordon, it's dramatic, and I loved it.
I love the fact that like we have like the whole escape from the police station scene is basically a bat exit in its own right.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like, okay, we actually get to see how a bat exit is pulled off here.
It was the messy bat exit, but it was
though he crashed. I did not expect that for him to like biff it so bad.
So,
God, yeah, it hurts so much watching it in the theater. Like, oh God.
well, so what you guys were talking about with like the Catwoman stuff is it's like it's fine, but it doesn't quite hit the best of like the best Batman Catwoman stuff. I kind of feel that way about pretty much everything in this movie, where it's like I think the Batman Catwoman dynamic is solid and it's fine, but it wasn't particularly sexy. I thought that the car chase was really cool and conceptualized in a really neat way, and it's very unique, and it's still not even in like my top 3 Batman or Batmobile car chases. I thought that
Batman Begins.
It's like
it's better than the Batman Begins car chase. Come on,
no way. He was
flying on car chase.
Yeah, come on, no. The 2 Nolan. I mean, all 3 of the Nolan vehicle chases are just completely awesome. But like, I think that like, but then also as like a Bruce Wayne kind of, looking into like the psyche of Bruce and Batman, I take Batman Begins as a crime movie. I take The Dark Knight as far as like this big, long, epic thing. This is nowhere near the bombast of Rises, which I think, as messy as that movie is, it aspires to like Fritz Lang and David Lean, which is, really cool. But like, I don't know. It's just like
Best Penguin.
What's that?
Maybe Best Penguin?
We should talk about the Penguin, by the way. Not John
I
Killian
guess
would like
I'm
us
more
to.
kind of boiling down like the elements, but like you're right. Like the Penguin is, I really like the Penguin in this movie. And
Hey, come on! What are you showing me?
A lot of that comes down to I think Batman Returns is just horrible, but like
Aesthetic, it looks nice.
It's
not much to it, but it looks nice.
I actually don't even hate Batman Returns Penguin as a character, but I think this is more comic accurate type Penguin.
No,
he's a scumbag. He's fun. He's over the top.
And you know, for myself, I think I really like Burgess Meredith Penguin from '66, but I don't know, like it's not.
Also, throw a nod out to Robin Lord Taylor specifically in season 1 of Gotham. I feel like that character kind of went off the rails as that show went on, but I think season 1 was a damn good arc for him.
Yeah.
But I will say it's not DeVito's fault, but I cannot watch that movie and not think of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Oh, anyway, I start blasting.
Yeah, exactly. There's like a whole episode where the joke is he's just looking more and more like the Penguin, and he's just being filthy and disgusting, and it's really, really funny.
Oh, you mean the one where he's like all in the hand sanitizer and everything?
It's the one with the child beauty pageant, and he's just like looking horrible the whole time. It's
gotcha.
Great.
I will though if like Colin Farrell's Penguin dies in the next movie, if they don't have an army of penguins leading him slowly to the water, I will be disappointed.
Okay, in all seriousness,
oh my God,
Colin Farrell Penguin.
Bring in special guest director Guillermo del Toro to have the death of the Penguin.
Okay,
have Morgan Freeman narrate it.
Yeah, there you go. Now we're talking.
You can imagine a del Toro like death of the Penguin would be like the Penguin dies in a zoo and he dies artfully around the penguins and they all gather around him. Anyway, so
anyway. George Miller, and it'll be just Happy Feet. All the penguins.
Okay, all right.
I like Happy Feet.
The point being, Colin Farrell is unrecognizable as the Penguin.
Yeah, so unrecognizable that like I've heard jokes on the internet where it's like they wouldn't be surprised if the whole Colin Farrell thing was just an elaborate practical joke and it wasn't actually him.
Yeah.
It's just some guy who just happens to also be named Colin Farrell.
Yeah, something like that. Right.
Colin Farrell.
There you go. Yeah.
My whole thing with it is like we've seen prosthetics before. We've seen like actors disappear behind makeup before.
Just a different person.
The voice is just completely like the voice is what gets me, man.
Yeah.
It's like there is no like, and of course Dragon and I are very familiar with Colin Farrell because of our love of Saving Mr. Banks. And among other things, he's been in a ton of stuff. He's a very recognizable actor, and this is like easily like I don't know. I'm not usually all that impressed by like they put a bunch of makeup on him and he looks different. But this is
the fact. I think you went into this expecting when you heard Colin Farrell playing Penguin, you're thinking like Cockney Penguin from the Arkham games.
Totally.
Not even that. I was expecting like Telltale Penguin, where he's
I was expecting
maybe that. Yeah, that's
Penguin.
another. Yeah, it's be another.
It still kind of makes me depressed that Philip Seymour Hoffman never got to play the Penguin.
Yeah,
I think that would have been perfect casting.
Philip Seymour Hoffman would have also been a really good Rupert Thorne.
You would have,
he would. But anyway, so the Penguin we get in this skeezy mobster.
Rupert Hoffman for Penguin in like 10 years.
Yeah, 20.
I mean, the scene where like Batman and Gordon just take Penguin, interrogate him, that felt like so much of the comics because like it's just a thing with comics where Batman will just need information, he goes to the Penguin, he roughs him up a little bit, then he'll just leave him alone.
And he waddles like a penguin.
Yeah.
So here's I love how the Iceberg Lounge. First of all, first time
the Iceberg Lounge is almost kind of like the center, like the focal location of the whole movie, almost.
Yes,
I mean, he knocks on the door 3 times.
Yeah, I love that. Like once in each act, if I'm breaking the acts down right.
That's probably true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's like once is Bruce and then Catwoman knocks or something like that. Regardless, so the Iceberg Lounge, first time we've gotten it on screen proper, which is great. It's the den of corruption in Gotham. I love how basically the Iceberg Lounge is the perfect representation of. By the way, I think possibly our best live action take on Gotham yet. Really, I do love everything about kind of our set piece and the aesthetic. And the
It's not as memorable to me as the Burton movies, but I do really like that. It's kind of like an amalgamation of like all the seedy parts of the American big city.
I mean, again, it feels like the 80s New York that was in year one. I really like that.
I like it a lot more than I like the Nolan Gotham. I'll give it that.
I don't know. Batman Begins with the train and everything felt very lived in, and the Narrows and stuff.
This feels like it's like we're starting there and we're pushing it further. That's why.
Yeah, I agree. This feels like what I wanted the continuation of Nolan's Gotham to be like.
Tiki. I'm gonna agree with both Lazerdude and Tiki there, where like Begins Gotham is like awesome, and then it's Chicago.
Exactly.
So like I agree, like
very good, very well shot Chicago, but just Chicago.
I don't mind Gotham being Chicago. I'm just saying I like this Gotham better.
Oh yeah. No, I like Gotham feeling like it takes place on another planet almost. It's like
that's why I still prefer the Burton movies just as far as production design goes.
Is like always so stylized.
Yeah.
But, see, that's the thing with like where I was kind of also going with, where I feel like I like everything here, and it's like it's all really good. I just wish I liked it just 20% more.
I feel you.
Where it's like with the Gotham here, it's like I feel like I know the Iceberg Lounge, the street outside the Iceberg Lounge, Wayne Tower, and GCPD really well. I don't feel like there's a lot of actual world connecting those. It feels like these are different levels in a video game that we go to.
I
could
have used a little bit more world building.
But alternately, similarly in like the 89 Batman movie, I feel like there is a world connecting those sets that we visit several times in the movie. Like, I don't know, like I feel like that movie does it just a little bit better, even though I think this is a better movie than Burton's Batman movies. I still think it does
it's
that.
Actually Batman, not the Punisher in a mask.
Yeah.
So, I guess with the Iceberg Lounge, I love that it sums up Batman's uphill battles so perfectly, because we spot cops and politicians with that whole, with the lens scene, and it's just like we just set the stage of that long Halloween kind of mob era transitioning to the Freaks era evolution that we kind of have in that story. So I loved everything the Iceberg Lounge kind of brought to us, and I like how again Penguin yet again connects to the the idea is Falcone's pulling all the strings. Penguin is like he runs the hodgepodge for all the corrupt individuals that Falcone had meetings with, a la the Iceberg Lounge. All that's great. I just love that he runs the melting pot. As the skeezy club owner. It's a lot of that really worked.
It's the cantina of Gotham City.
Yeah, and they're promising this. They're doing this Penguin prequel show on HBO Max. They're saying it's like a Scarface Rise to Power story, and we do see the Penguin looks really like he's got gnarled up and he's got scars himself on his face. So there's
with like Colin Farrell.
Yeah, with Colin Farrell's Penguin.
Yeah, no. Basically, the premise of the show is like it's Godfather 2, so it'll be both a prequel and a sequel.
Even better.
Oh, I like that.
Cool.
Oh, it's even
now
better.
I thought Peacemaker was really, really, really bad. So I'm not.
Whoa.
I know, hot take.
Hot take. Yeah, I haven't even watched it yet, but
I haven't seen
everything I've heard about it's like, oh, it's so good.
No, you need to understand how disappointing that was to me. I thought The Suicide Squad was like magnificent, and I was so excited for that show. And it was, you know how like Ant-Man, it's like, oh, they got some guy to try to do their impression of an Edgar Wright movie. This felt like if you got Adam McKay to do his impression of a James Gunn thing. And so it just annoyed me to no end, and I really didn't like it. So until I see a better like DC spin-off show, I'm just gonna not be excited for Penguin. So if it's good, I'll be pleasantly surprised and like it that much more. So hey.
Well, again, it's kind of apples and oranges though, Connor. This is like something that's very
you have to
specific.
understand like where I'm coming at it from. Like I know it's a different project with different creatives and all that. That being said, I see like when you look at like the Disney Plus Marvel shows, there is an absolutely like an approach they have to it. And I don't know enough about HBO Max just yet to know if they have like a similar approach that they ask of everybody, or if they do allow people to just get completely creative and differentiate it. So
like a house, you mean?
For right now,
let me put it this way: I have HBO Max will probably be able to be more creative and be able to do more things than, let's say, somebody making a Disney Plus show would have the reins to do.
Even so, this is like the second time they've done this, so it's not really a pattern yet.
I know.
Yes.
I'm just saying when in the new realm of streaming, I'm not sure yet. So I'm just gonna hedge my bets That's all. Like I understand.
I'm on Connor's side here. I always lean towards the side of cautious optimism.
Well, regardless, however we see the Penguin next, whether it be just pops up again just with the Iceberg Lounge as a location in future films or his show, is one thing I would like. I'd love him to use have a concealed weapon in an umbrella, kind of like a legitimized version of the umbrella gun. It's brings an umbrella to a meeting, and again, gun.
Well, I think it'd just be fun if he was just getting interrogated by Batman, and he's just like, "What are you asking me for? What happened?" And just he's like, "Hey, what can I say? I can't punch you, but I can surprise you." Something like that.
All right.
I thought it was a very smart choice to only have Penguin be in one scene in the daylight. I think the prosthetics show a little bit more in the daylight, but it made sense why he needed to be there. But when it was at nighttime, the way they could light it, the prosthetics looked so good. They looked so good. Oh my word, magnificent!
Probably at least get nominated for best makeup.
Oh yeah.
If it wins, it continues the theory that any Batman movie that has a Joker in it will get an Oscar.
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, hey, if Suicide Squad can win best makeup and hairstyling, this had better also do that. So
yeah.
Right.
All right. What is everyone's take of the Riddler?
Yes. So this is a big. Okay. Well, who wants to go first?
I'll start.
All right.
I really like the take on the joke on that. I really like the take on the Riddler. It's definitely very much in the vein of the Zodiac Killer, especially with these ciphers and the attire. I'll disagree with you, Lazerdude, in terms of the outfit. I like the outfit. It makes sense with what that version would wear and the use of social media and sort of his whole modus operandi. The moments where he doesn't really think well, there's one scene in particular when Paul Dano is in the Arkham State Hospital and he starts humming the and it's
the Ave Maria.
Yeah, and I'm just ooh, that is something I would definitely cut out because it just makes him look I'm
more
sure
manic.
I liked how for the most part it was sort of this there was sort of a parallel between him and Robert Pattinson Batman where there's this simmering rage that's almost ready to burst out. And it's very evident in the scenes where he bludgeons people, specifically the DA and the mayor.
Mm-hmm.
But definitely the one scene that really encapsulated what made the Riddler work is definitely where he's on the FaceTime sort of video with a DA.
Mm-hmm.
And just the level, just him.
That might be my favorite scene in the movie.
Funeral. You mean you mean the whole bomb collar sequence?
Yes,
that was great. That was such. That might be the best scene.
I was so on the edge of my seat for that. That was so well done.
That might be the standout scene. A lot of people are going to point to the car chase, but that scene was great.
You know what's funny about the car chase is it's a well done car chase, and I really like the use of the Batmobile. Is kind of I've heard a lot of
pretty perfectly.
Dude,
I've heard a lot of comparisons to Jaws or Duel with the Batmobile, which is accurate. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's still it's a cool car chase, but it's a car chase. We've seen car chases before. You know?
Car chases are my favorite kinds of action scenes. I consider myself a car chase aficionado.
Okay.
It's pretty good. I think the way he's approaching it is kind of unique, where it's all about the strategy and being inside and the in the moment.
People are really hyping this as one of the all-time great cinematic car chases.
What's really crazy about that scene?
It's not The Dark Knight, it's not Batman Begins, and it's certainly not Death Proof. But the thing I will say though, I was giggling the whole time because Penguin yelling at people to get out of his way. I was just thinking about that being a GIF and how many times I'm going to use that GIF.
I heard that when I don't know if I would hope they don't do this the whole time they were shooting this, but I heard at some point when they were shooting that car chase, and I assume it made it to film, was Pattinson or whoever they had to drive the Batmobile during those sequence went up to 100 miles per hour, which is crazy.
Nice.
I think it was Pattinson. He did that, and then they didn't let him do that again.
I know. Why on earth would that's why I had to doubt it for a second. Why?
Car?
Yes. Why would they
He has
have
a
him?
mask.
They'd have your lead actor drive 100 miles. Apparently, wasn't supposed to do that, but yeah,
I don't know. I kind of appreciate them doing that because I mean, let's be honest. If we were in the Batmobile, we would definitely try.
Yeah, exactly, right. Like I was about to say,
you know what Padson's
Yeah.
probably thinking. If I'm gonna, if this goes horribly wrong, and can you imagine like what better death in Hollywood could you have? Than he went out driving the Batmobile, going 100 miles per hour, full costume,
so epic. Yeah.
Now, what I really appreciate about the back car chase was the use of the handheld camera to really focus in on like the movements of the vehicles within the road. The reaction shots for both Batman and the Penguin, I think, really added to the visceral experience. And just the final shot of that scene,
with the music,
that was like chef's kiss right there.
All right, but we're getting off track.
Yeah.
Here.
Anyway,
I'm
back
sorry.
to Riddler. Back to Riddler. So here's where I'm at on the Riddler. So I'm not 100% on the Riddler stuff, but a lot of it I really liked. Again, as I mentioned before, primarily the plot and how everything kind of feeds into basically feeds into his plan until the climax. I'm not griping at the climax for the whole like Batman like doesn't solve anything or anything. That doesn't bother me because I don't fully agree with that. For me, it's that everything up to Riddler accomplishes everything he sets out to do, and then we kind of tack on. He's going after a mayor who we don't really say one way or another is corrupt or not, which would fit his pattern. So it just feels like, okay, I've done everything. I've closed the loop on my big revenge plot. I've kind of the way things would have gone perfectly is if Batman was on his side at the end. Obviously that didn't go, but it's like, hey, I've sent people out. I've inspired my own people. They're going to go out, cause some ruckus, and primarily take out someone just for the heck of it versus like, well, everyone else you took out was like a corrupt figure that led to your current state, tied into the whole renewable thing. That's what I don't get. Everything up to that point, I really like with them from a plot perspective.
I absolutely think that the final stuff was clunky. I love the ending. I want to make that clear.
It's frustrating because I love the final
stuff is fucking amazing.
Yeah, I know.
I love that from a visual level. I love it.
And that's what kills me about
getting
it.
us to that moment was a little bit wonky for sure.
Because that's all the 0 year stuff, and then we do the flare. Well, the flare's my favorite part in the entire film.
I think the flare is like an instantly iconic Batman moment.
I know, it was beautiful.
Yeah.
I think my response to Blue Dragon is like maybe my take on that on like why Riddler decides to escalate to the whole like the flooding and then just having all his like copycat goons or whatever like shoot at people within Gotham Square Garden. I think it's sort of the point where it's like he's just been so like let down by society and specifically Gotham being so corrupt that like he's taking out the corrupt people, but he just has so much like unchecked anger and apathy and just hatred towards the city that like he just wants like just like how God like unleashes the flood to take away to like punish humanity where the sin. That's just where he's at mentally.
I mean, you know what I wish it was what would made the leap a little easier for me, I think, ultimately. It's that, I mean, the flood, again, I'm interpreting the flood in that it's more of like, okay, we're starting from zero because the corruption's just so irresponsible at this point. We're just going to start from zero, and for Riddler in the comic is more
Frozen
like
2 climax.
Well, essentially in 0 year it was the Riddlers wanted to like.
I'm not going to lie, that was running through my head a little bit.
Anyway,
I'm sorry.
0 year thing was essentially Riddler wanted, from what I understand, from what I recall, was he wanted to kind of force the smartest to evolve, and that was going to weed out the weak links again, starting from a 0 point. So I'm not saying we're doing that verbatim here, but I kind of wish it was he started following all those people were made that choice on their own versus him saying, go after him.
Because that would have been a good evolution of him being inspired by Batman.
Yeah, that's what I wish. I just wish we kind of verbalized that or did something to kind of convey that a little. If they did that, I think I'd be full on for.
So let me tell you what I do like about the Riddler, though. I love that a lot of the scenes that he's in are super creative, super suspenseful. Like I said, I do think as far as the performance goes with just how unhinged he is, I think it is the most scary Batman villain that we've ever had on film.
Over than Ledger.
I mean, Heath Ledger, there's always an element of comedy with Heath. Yeah, it's an uneasy comedy, but the comedy is still there.
And I feel
with this Riddler, there's no comedy. It's all just grit.
But I would,
always sorry, I guess for me it's the fact that the Riddler's always at a far, he's never hands-on in any of the
that to me
situations.
makes him scarier almost.
But,
like
yeah,
the
I don't
scene
know.
at the funeral. Like, I don't know. Like, and also the idea that like he is kind of like from afar, and then he gets unmasked, and he's
I'd be
just
much
some
more scared
guy.
about somebody holding a knife in my mouth than somebody threatening me from a phone, is all I'm saying.
But yeah, and I guess it's all down to preference. But like, I think that with
I'm
the
not saying
Joker
he's a better villain than the
Oh, no,
Joker.
no,
I'm just saying
I know. I'm just saying, speaking
Yeah.
for myself, like, I know that like I think that terror and comedy come from the same place in your brain, and the Joker kind of lacing things with comedy just make you even more uneasy, because it's like a sort of contradiction or a paradox where levity is meant to resolve tension, but it paradoxically like adds to the tension with the I don't know. I think it's all fabulous the way Ledger does that in Dark Knight.
Here's the scare factor, the interesting thing in regards to maybe some. What always bothers me historically, how some people still, I'm sure this movie did not help this at all. Some people just keep confusing Riddler and Joker when they're very one's purple, one's green. How can you mix that up? I don't get it.
Riddles and jokes.
I know riddles. It's still riddles and jokes. It's my point. It's very clear cut.
I don't know.
My point is
the only thing difference is a punchline and a question is really.
Yeah.
But I would say that like when it comes to like, okay, let's take Riddler and Joker, take them to each extremes. Come up with the goofiest Riddler or Joker, and then come up with the scariest Riddler or Joker. And I think the goofiest version of both of them look very similar, and the scariest version of both of them also look very similar.
So
yeah. No, I think that's why people kind of conflate them.
Well, the Joker similarity I found in here that I found interesting was the fact that almost in Joker's warped way of like I'm helping the Batman, I'm the Batman, and also Telltale again to kind of go in this direction with the Joker, which is kind of odd, is that again with the whole kind of Riddler being inspired by Batman angle we have here. Think about it, Riddler and Batman's introduction eerily similar, which they're using violence to achieve their goals, and kind of in a way that kind of follows in succession there, and again, just throughout the film, it just kind of in kind of paralleling them and kind of their origins and the crossover between the Wayne family and the renewal effort and everything as we just kind of build there. And we have that great scene where he kind of during that interrogation scene where he says, "Do you know what an orphan is?" And he basically sells it. No, being an orphan is not having like looking down on everyone from like a rich man's house or something. Like that was, again, there's a lot of fascinating layers to that, and it's like if I'm going to use violence, I'm going to use my own gimmick to stop corruption once and for all, and basically choose my target specifically like a serial killer. And I think ultimately what this film does so well with the Riddler is this film represents the risk the perpetual risk that Batman poses, the age-old question of does Batman create his villains? I think we summarize that so perfectly with the whole inspiration factor there. I don't know. I really,
I think what to add on to that, like the Riddler, he not only takes inspiration from the Zodiac Killer, but he also, like, especially with his death traps, definitely takes heavy inspiration from Jigsaw. Especially with the modus operandi, like for Jigsaw in the Saw movies, like he puts all these death traps on people, and he's trying, and he does that intentionally to push people to be better than they are and improve intellectually or ethically and all that stuff. And it's very telling that like in one of his like memoirs or journals, like he brings the specific point that like his life was like a riddle that he couldn't seem to gather, and once he understood the meaning, he then wanted other people to be given their riddles and solve and find the ugly truth to their lives and to why Gotham's the way it is.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up Saw, Rohith, because I actually just watched through all the Saw movies last October. That is one of the craziest soap operas in film form I've ever seen. I kind of loved it, even though it was complete crap insanity. It was lovely. But like when you had the Riddler like putting, is it Peter or Alexander Sarsgaard or Peter Sarsgaard, like putting his like the bomb on his head and like driving him in. I was thinking of Saw the whole time, and I don't know, there is like a whole Saw element to it, and I guess that's kind of just the way serial killer movies are, where it's like gosh darn it, we can't catch this one killer.
Yeah,
and like But what's funny about the Saw movies is that it's like 7 movies in a row with this one completely incompetent police department, just incapable of catching this one guy,
it's a well-worn trope for serial killers for serial killers in fiction to just like toy their victims and toy like the detectives and all that stuff.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, so
I will say one of the things that I do like about that scene that we were talking about with the Riddler talking about how, you know, Bruce isn't really an orphan because he still had all the money and everything, even though he doesn't even realize he's talking to Bruce Wayne. That makes it all very, you can tell by that it makes it all very personal for the Riddler. You know, it's not actually about making the city a better place.
Yeah.
It's actually about, you know, putting justice on those who are not, who are, you know, breaking the law. It is about, these are the people that have made me suffer, so I'm going to make them suffer.
I mean, he's basically seeking vengeance, which is like that furthers the parallel between him and Bruce.
So I haven't really weighed in on the Riddler, I think.
Oh,
but
sure. Yeah, what do you got?
Part of me, I can't, like, I need to watch this again to be more like objective or whatever about it. The Riddler in this movie looks almost exactly like one of my best friends, and I couldn't stop giggling whenever Paul Dano was on screen. Like, they have the exact same glasses frames. Like, it's insane. Like, and also one of my best friends, like one of his favorite actors, is also Paul Dano. So it was just really funny that it worked out that way.
You talking about Rasco?
Yeah, Rasco. Yeah,
I saw that
Rasco does look like Paul Dano. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's crazy how much they look similar. But also Paul Dano, I love him as an actor. He has like a cartoon mouth where it's like he can like make it into like a perfect circle, and you don't see like lip creases or anything. He looks like a doughboy. It's adorable. But regarding the Riddler, I like him as a like this entity that like pushes forward the character and the plot and the narrative. I like him less as a character, though. Like, when you get to the interrogation scene, and like, I like the ideas he raises. I like, you know, the conflict he motivates. I like all of that. But when it came down to like that interrogation scene, I would say I was a little underwhelmed. And I think it kind of comes down to like, where are you placing the importance? And they were favoring the ideas over the Riddler as a character, and that's an okay choice. Like, it's an opportunity cost you have to make, and I think as a result it makes the first 2 acts like really good, but it makes the third act like about, you know, like a little bit of a step down from the others.
I would disagree, because the third act is when I fully came on board for the character. Like, I like the scene with the DA a whole lot, but I was like, what is this? How is this the Riddler? You know, Riddler killing people for justice, that doesn't feel like the Riddler to me. Where's the ego? Where's the all about me and my intelligence?
Well, the ego is he thinks he's on the same level as Batman. That's where the ego element of
but
this
I was
film
like,
is.
where is that? Where's that dynamic coming from? And then when we got to the end, and first he sees him and Batman as equals, and I'm like, oh, okay, he sees himself and Batman as equals, and now when Batman rejects it and slams it in his face,
they're both chasing the head of the snake.
That now I got to prove that I'm better. We're not equal anymore. I got to prove that I'm better.
You're right, Lazerdude, and I agree. I think the idea of that is absolutely there. I just think when you're seeing Paul Dano like trying to inhabit a character, it's not as strong as the ideas he's raising, though, and that's the element.
I like the line where he's like, "Oh, you're not as smart as I thought you were."
Yeah, that's the beginning of it right there.
Yeah, and I don't know. I feel like there's just like a little bit of a separation between the ideas he's raising and like the performance, like signifying the character.
I got a big question to raise to all of you. This is a thought that occurred to me after seeing the movie, and it was a big thing. And I wonder, I haven't talked to anybody else about this. I really want to get your view on this. Okay, so I see possibly a missed opportunity in hindsight with this film and using the Riddler as the bad guy, in that there's a big plot point we have in this film. It's not just like it's like something literally put on the screen before us all here, a hush.
Oh, I know.
So the question is, do you guys think I think it seems to me that Reeves blended Riddler and Hush, which again has been done a little bit in the Hush book and adaptations of that book, and it kind of leads to the question of like, do you think ultimately Hush would have been a better fit in the first place, just given that he's literally, his father presumably was the reporter who was killed by Falcone on behalf of Thomas Wayne.
He might have been a better fit for the story, but I just don't. I think they went with the Riddler. Just obviously
name recognition. You can't use Hush as your first villain
exactly
back as the thing. It's like Batman fans would go nuts, and everyone else is like, who's the Batman villain in this movie? Hush.
Literally everyone else would be like Jamon Hansu at the beginning of Guardians of the Galaxy.
Like, do you guys think, but potentially, you think it was like a thing where like Reeves had like an ambitious take to Warner Brothers? Like, guys, I want to use Hush, but I'm gonna.
Well, here's my thing, Dragon. Is that
go on.
I'm sorry. For the Riddler, like the Riddler, I have wanted to see a serious take on for a long time. He was easily the villain that I most wanted to see Nolan tackle, and we just never got around to it. So I almost kind of think it was more of a Warner Brothers thing. I think Warner Brothers maybe wanted to do the Riddler as I don't know. That's my theory.
I know what I'm asking is, do you think Reeves perhaps pitched them, hey, I want to do the Riddler, but I want to reveal him to be Thomas Elliott instead of. That's what I'm asking.
That would have been interesting.
Do you think they shot him down on that?
That would have been a good idea.
Okay, so you think
don't mess with it because it's then you're looking at an Iron Man 3 Mandarin situation.
I know exactly.
Right.
So I'm wondering if that conversation ever happened or not. If like they realized that.
I don't know.
Also, Thomas
I don't think it
Elliott
matters either way because it's like the movie is what it is.
Because now you have to make like the backstory with him and Bruce as best friends as kids. Do you have to do that? That's a whole other thing that you have to open up and have to
let
do.
me ask you guys this.
No, but sorry to answer your last question, Dragon. Though it's like
okay.
I think it would have just been like Hush in name only. Like you just decided to call him Tommy Elliott. It's like, so what? Like it doesn't really matter. Like who cares if his name is Edward Blake or Thomas Elliott or whatever. It's like you could just throw on a name anywhere. Like then at that point it doesn't matter. And also I'm glad they didn't do Hush because Hush sucks. So
that's what I'm saying. But then the fact is Hush is iconography only because he was drawn beautifully by Jim Lee. But beyond that, Hush there's no teeth until Paul Dini did like a story with Hush, which doesn't fix it.
But I also think like they would have sold I think Warner Brothers would have been okay with him doing Hush because they could have sold like 1 million more Hush copies, which is one of the most popular stories. So I don't know.
Here's the thing. I wonder if perhaps because we had a lot of Easter eggs to other villains, like all the clues that the Riddler sent were like Court of Owls, Hugo Strange, Poison Ivy, Mad Hatter, Ventriloquist, like all the kind of little nods, perhaps not official, like it's absolutely like advertising, but like little things that hint at villains to come, perhaps, or villains that may have been established, unclear. But it's the fact of all these villains that might be coming in future installments. I wouldn't be surprised. I wonder how much of a rehash would be at risk of being if we fix possibly, or if Bruce Wayne's more front and center, who'd be the perfect villain to kind of call Bruce Wayne out and stuff? Someone who's directly impacted by the Wayne family, Thomas Elliott.
I kind of don't. I don't think.
It's like a revamp. I'm not saying we do a full-on adaptation of his childhood friends or everything.
Okay, well, let's just ask the question. Like, let's say the Joker is not the next villain that they use. Just because they introduced him here doesn't mean he'll show
I
up
absolutely do not think the Joker should be the next villain.
Yeah, I think save him for the third. You can set him up in the second one, but save him for the third.
I mean, maybe check in with him again, but we build him up.
But who would you cast as the next villain in this franchise?
So apparently the next villain is going to be Mr. Freeze, because if you go to that URL that's at the end of the credits, it like has a riddle that says I am he who comes before 1, which is 0, which is Mr. Zero, which is the original name for Mr. Freeze. So
there were a lot of riddles that whole page that gives you a different riddle each day though. So I
would go for say like a Mad Hatter, Ventriloquist, but also I think an underrated pick, especially in light of sort of how much this movie sort of deals with the politics of Gotham City, to a certain extent with the social inequality. Anarchy would be a very interesting villain to pair against Robert Pattinson's Batman, because I think he would. It might verge on sort of what the Riddler is doing, but I think the challenging not just sort of the corruption of like Gotham City's system of governance, but just the overall idea of how Gotham City's run as an institution, I think would be very interesting.
That could be cool. I think they might be worried it'd be too similar, but that would be a cool concept to go with.
Well, remember, there's also I'm not saying we're going to do this full on next movie, but in terms of introducing characters and stuff, it'll be a question of how ambitious Reeves wants to be here. If he's going to be intimidated by it all, well, they did in the Nolan trilogy. We did kill a DA in this film. There we go. If we're going to elect another guy,
I wouldn't mind Two-Face showing up in this universe only because in the Nolan movies, like in The Dark Knight, we had Two-Face in name only. Like
it was mostly Harvey Dent that we had.
Yeah, I would like to see Two-Face with the dissociative identity disorder, and I think any really good actor who's cast for that part can really harp on that duality and like that psychology.
I'm actually leaning towards let's try to see if we can get someone like Mr. Freeze or like a powered villain in these movies. You know, because think about it this way: Batman has not had a super-powered villain in his movies since Batman and Robin.
Oh man, that's crazy to think about.
Now,
I mean, Bane, it kind of had the thing with the mask that it stops him from feeling pain, but that's not the same thing.
Yeah, no, it's not. Yeah, no, it'd be cool. It'd also be kind of cool if like our first powered villain since Mr. Freeze was Mr. Freeze.
Okay, well, given the Joker thing, I think the fire's kind of gone out in this theory, but I remember there's a lot of anticipation. I always thought it was a long shot that we were going to go this far, just given how grounded Reeves wanted to go with this. But again, the door is not completely closed. That if we were building the Court of Owls for like a trilogy of sorts, like imagine we introduce Mr. Freeze. I'm not the one to bring this up. I've heard this speculated by many people. We introduce Mr. Freeze, who's kind of a key to taking out the court, and then the third movie we do the court.
Well, I'd be cool. I'd be down for Court of Owls. I would also, though, I mean, we had all four of the villains from Batman 66 movie show up. What if we're all building up to a dark and gritty remake of Batman 66?
Oh, that'd be crazy. And again, remember, Joker's talking to the Riddler. They're being buddies. And we had the Penguin, and we had Catwoman. We had all four.
Riddler
Holy shoot, I didn't even think about that.
We already have all four.
We have all four of them ready to go. We're
only
missing Robin. We're only missing Robin.
In one film, wewe've done all four.
Hey, Batman's already got his eye on one orphan. It very well could happen.
Yeah. And that orphan was swinging a sword in the first shot. So
he was.
Maybe that orphan's mother's maiden name is Drake, and
oh god.
Yeah.
Or Grayson or Todd, or heck, maybe the rat with wings was actually is a Robin reference.
Now we're talking.
My point is, here's the thing. I really would love to see Matt Reeves' take on Mr. Freeze. Now, just given the end of the film, just to kind of feed that in a little bit too, because we're getting really villain happy now, just to retie things in a little bit. With the flooding and everything. And again, just for me, MVP seeing the whole thing is I love when Batman saves people, when he lights that flare. Again, he's kind of stepping out from the shadows officially in that moment. He lights that flare, saves all those people, and it becomes kind of an inspiring figure that
you know what that moment totally is for me? It's what Zack Snyder was trying to do with his imagery.
Yes, it was. Absolutely. I mean, for me, me, because of my ties on this, I was
reaching out for Superman.
What?
I would say just like the people reaching out for Superman.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. The whole, yeah.
Except
except it made sense.
It's way less over the top, but it's I don't know. There's something just so powerful about the image, man.
Except now we know what Batman stands for, and not Superman just kind of shrugging like, "What?"
It's like exactly right. Crack a smile. You saved a bunch of people. All right, come on.
Drop a quarter or something. Are you trying to hand me a quarter?
No, I don't have any change.
You don't have anything.
I watched through all the Superman movies like a couple of months ago, and I was like, wow, Superman Returns and Man of Steel are like unforgivable to me now. Like I cannot deal with them anymore.
So, well, regardless, so yeah, I mean, I was legitimately kind of almost tearing up during that scene because I thought it was just so darn beautiful, like how that all paid off, and the color red throughout all the marketing and everything. It was so earned. Look at all that red, and he was saving people with it.
I also love the. This is kind of also connecting back to the themes of Bruce finding his humanity. Alfred has very limited screen time, but I honestly I don't really.
We almost killed him.
Yeah, I'm glad
was
you did
worried.
it because I think that would have been super cheap, like right at the beginning of the series to basically Uncle Ben him.
Yeah.
No, I think
yeah.
actually what you're touching on now is something I wish they would have done. Like differentiate your Batman a little bit by just killing off Alfred right off the bat. Do it, you know.
Oh no, Andy Serkis rarely gets to do live action. You can't just
No,
kill
no,
I
him.
totally,
no,
yeah,
no.
Andy
We can't just
Serkis.
kill him
Not,
every time. We dismember him, we kill him. We can't keep doing that.
not to
He
mention
comes
Andy
back as
Serkis
like
is
a
kind of like Matt
CGI
Reeves' like
character.
go-to guy. So
See, but I feel like, you know, like there's a couple of parts where this movie kind of pulls its punches a little bit. I say kill Alfred, or at the very least, like, you know what? What if we act, because like we act like Thomas Wayne did something that was pretty bad. It was a mistake. It wasn't that big of a mistake. It was like the lightest possible gray you could have possibly gone. Like it's he's trying to like pay hush money because like his wife has like mental illness in a time when mental illness is super stigmatized. That's like anybody would have done that. Anybody would have done that. And I wish there was like a more morally gray thing that Bruce had to live with. And
Well,
I
like
also
maybe
would
he asked to like maybe he asked Carmen Falcone to like beat him up,
Yeah,
Yeah,
and then-
not
or-
just scare him.
which, by
or
the
at least,
way,
like-
with that, I love the parallels to, again, he basically kind of wanted a Batman to kind of scare and use some violence against him, and again ended up in death.
Or-
And kind
or
of-
And I
not-
also,
not
but,
even-
but
not
lastly,
even-
the last thing I was a little frustrated with, and this is all kind of in that same block of time, is where we have Carmine Falcone tell Bruce, you know, like one side of the story, and then like
Yeah.
the very next scene, Alfred's like, no, actually, this is what it was really
World's
like.
greatest detective, everybody.
And I was just like, wait a minute, we don't have Bruce live with that for more than one scene? Like, really? Like, that's weird. Like, did I write the screenplay or something? That's a dig at myself. I've written screenplays and I fall into that trap where a character learns information and then learns the actual information one scene later. But like, I don't know. Like I don't know. Like I had somewhere I was going with this and I'm forgetting.
I
now,
will say
but-
I got to applaud the movie for not doing a flashback to his parents dying. There,
Yes.
Is that-
I
Well,
will
barely
leave
even,
it.
barely
Could've
even
done it.
talking about it because it's like I
Could've
feel like
done it.
because I feel like that's like the better equivalent to like what they're trying to do with the MCU and Spider-Man and not really addressing Uncle Ben is
Yeah.
like
Well,
because with that it's like it just feels like there's a hole there because those movies are, you know, for the most part until we get to No Way Home, they're so light and fluffy that it doesn't even register with you that this guy's been through a tragedy.
I love that instead of showing it, what we did is we hit the ambiguity so well that
we show it specifically through Pattinson's performance throughout the whole movie. Like I touched on in my you know, on my opening thoughts of his performance, I just like he is like very much like from the second he takes off that mask, it's like you can tell it's like, oh, this is an emotionally stunted, fucked up individual right here.
But
And
it's
the
just-
scene
it's
with
just-
him looking at the orphan kid, just that right there gives you all the information that you need
Totally,
to know on
totally.
what his motivation
It's
is.
just the fact that, again, like it could have been a random mugging, it could have been Maroni, it could have been Falcone. Like the fact that after he was going to go to he was basically going to cop to what happened in that whole disaster. I'm going to scare someone away from a store and they end up getting dead.
Probably dumb to tell the mob boss you're going to do that.
Yeah, well, of course, but it's the fact that he overestimated his friendship with Falcone, quite possibly. But again, we don't know for sure if that's 100% what happened because he did
Yeah,
have
and-
respect for Thomas Wayne. We don't know.
And I also feel like Bruce and Alfred should have had this conversation by now. Like I didn't buy that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a good scene. Andy Serkis is selling the hell out of it. He's doing a great job. It was too much of an ask for me to buy that they haven't had this conversation
It
yet.
made a lot
Yeah,
of sense.
no,
If
I had the same thought.
Alfred's not 100% sure what happened and the relevancy of it. He's not 100% sure of like, well, I don't know if that necessarily got him killed. Otherwise, he would have had that conversation with them. And the fact that he's not 100% sure is just like kind of tortured. The fact that Alfred was like investing everything he had in finding out who killed the Waynes and just he had turned up empty. I don't know. I like that aspect of it.
And
I
the
like
one
that
thing
he
I want to
investigated
hit on with Alfred really quick is I really like the, you know, tying back to the humanity. I love the monologue that Pattinson gives about like, I thought I had mastered my fear, but there's still one thing that I'm, you know, really afraid of, and that's losing a loved one. I'm like, that's the yuck, baby.
Yeah. But it does kind of still feel like the beginning where he's like, "Hi, Alfred. By the way, you're not my father."
He totally has like, "You're not my dad." He totally has that energy at the start.
My dad is dead.
Yeah.
I will say
I,
that was probably the one moment with Robert
not
Pattinson
scared
where I
of
was
you,
like,
Dad.
okay, Okay,
That's the problem.
tone down the angst
Unfortunately,
just a little bit here.
I will say
that's where we get all the angsty stuff I was afraid of with Pattinson outside of the suit, which is just like, oh, come on.
It's
Again,
because
I'm
it's
sure it's going to get
I don't
better.
want to go to a business meeting. Business meetings are stupid.
It's just the fact we don't see that business meeting. Like, why? Why bring it up then?
At least open the door and see people there, you know?
Right.
I will say that the movie is, for the most part, very well written. There are a couple of times, though, where it has to lean on cliches that, for example, I think a Nolan film wouldn't have relied on. Like, that's the one thing was like, you're not my father. It's like, I wonder if they're going to have a bonding moment later. And he regrets saying you're not my father.
The bonding moment is super nice, but I agree. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
I mean,
but then there's
it's
also
like
the
that
scene
moment
with
in Man of
Catwoman.
Steel.
There's a scene where Catwoman, she's like, oh, I'm going to go kill him. He's like, don't kill, you'll be just as bad as he is. How many times have we heard in any superhero movie or any movie in general, don't kill them or you're just as bad as he is? Find a new way to put it.
That's kind of what I was talking about when I was saying, like, the Batman Catwoman stuff. Like, as good as Zoe Kravitz is, there is kind of a been there, done that kind of feel to it a little bit.
But Lazerdude, it's like I also like take a shot in any media where someone refers to Gotham as a cesspool. It's like, okay, could we think of a different like thing to call like Gotham?
Like, it's like when you're writing a Batman movie, it has autocomplete. Gotham is a cesspool.
Now bring on the blimps.
You will be just as bad as they are. You know, it's just like it finishes your sentence. It's
but
like,
Lazerdude, I agree. Like, it is well written, and like the part when they start quoting Ego verbatim, which is by my boy Darwin Cook. It was like a wet dream on screen come true. I was like,
let me ask you,
yes.
I don't think they represent Ego enough. How do you feel about that?
It's fine. Like, I'm glad they don't just remake, because like Ego's weird because it's like basically it's an essay in comic book form. Like, it's not really a narrative story so much as it is just sort of like conceptual more in nature than anything else. But I mean, the drenched in red stuff, like, that's right out of Ego. Like, them talking about what like fear is right out of Ego, and like the whole like central concept about like Batman and Bruce sort of being these dueling entities is like, I mean, that's just what Ego is. No, I feel like
I don't think the dueling entities thing came across. That's the issue I have with like Reeves was selling the crap out of Ego.
It's not literalized the way it is in Ego, but like I feel like Reeves is like taking the essence of that story and trying to present it as opposed to just simply doing Ego. And I think that's how you do it, because I mean, Darwin Cook was a cartoonist, right? And like, that's a very cartoony story. I think
he literalized it. He literalized the Ego.
Yeah, and I think like I thought what Matt Reeves did was very tasteful. That's how I wanted them to adapt Ego. I thought they did a really good job.
To jump off of that, I think about an interview that where with Robert Pattinson, and one of the stories he highlighted that like informed his performance and characterization of Bruce Wayne Batman was Batman Shaman, the Dennis O'Neil story.
Mm-hmm.
And one point that he made that really, I think, rings through with this characterization and with this movie is that like there's sort of this mystical element for Bruce in putting on the Batman outfit and having this like air of like mysticism or legend and being sort of given like special powers and all that. And I think it's sort of like the way Batman moves in this movie, he's almost like a wraith. Like, he's sort of barely like a person. He's just a shadow that comes in and out. And like the fact that he's bulletproof and he just walks through the room like a Terminator.
That shot.
Okay, so I still can't get behind. I can get behind a little bit more than I could in the trailer, but it's like I still think he's too bulletproof. But in the third act, when he's saving a bunch, we're saving everyone. He's fighting the Riddler goons, which, by the way, is to the earlier point in the comments. Why is no one talking about the fact that Riddler is henchman in this movie? Yes, he's got henchmen. I like the fact that we see.
I mean, they're basically like a Reddit incel army, though. So that's what I appreciate about them.
You know, the internet plans with strangers who you've never met do not usually go this well. You know, I'm just
totally. Yeah,
coordinate like orchestrating a deadly flash mob.
We went to the wrong stadium. We were gonna do the football stadium, right? Sorry.
Yeah,
I'll be there 10 minutes late. I'm just picking up a hot dog.
This is actually the craziest like Reddit meetup in history.
Yeah, exactly.
So I like that, we're seeing like he's getting a little more injured with it than I'm just saying still when he's walking that hole, he's just like walking without being deterred all when they're shooting at him. That's a little much to me. It's like, come on.
It's much, but it's a cool shot.
No, it's much cooler when he's like evading the bullets and beating them up. Why do we have to just walk on through?
The scene where it's like it's dark and Batman's just going through and the only thing lighting that room is the bullet fire.
Yeah.
That was so cool. Like they tried to do a scene like that with the Dark Knight Rises, but it looked like Bruce was kind of just like side hop stepping.
The strobe light.
That one didn't look as good as this one.
It was better than the strobe light. I just wish they had hit him straight on.
Yeah, they could have been missing. Maybe they should have been like firing all over the place.
I don't know. I like that. I like the bulletproof because the thing is, it just adds to the like terror. Like if you're a goon, like you're afraid of not being able to hit Batman, but even if you hit Batman, he just keeps on walking, and that just like adds to like him being like a terrifying.
Yeah, but I don't know. Like I feel like that takes away from Batman to me anyways. Like I feel like like I like that this is a younger Batman who is like more slender and like leaner in his physique. Like that's how I want my younger Batman to be. But at the same time, it's like because he's leaner and more slender, I see him like hopping around and being a ninja more, and I get like that is like his suit is more like an Iron Man suit than any other like Batman suit on the screen. But I don't know. I feel like him taking direct bullet fire. I'm gonna agree with Dragon here. It's a little much.
I bought it more than I thought I would by the very end where you saw him like he's injecting himself with like adrenaline, possibly Venom. Who knows?
That's Venom. That has to be Venom.
There's that one scene where he's like taking on the Riddler thugs on the catwalk, and it looks like it's straight out of Arkham Asylum video game where he's just like grabbing their weapons, beating them with it, knocking them to the ground.
That's the only way. Take that, Snyder. That's the only way Batman should have a gun if he hits someone with it.
Yeah, yeah. What was I gonna say? Somebody else go. I'm just thinking.
I wish it's interesting that he doesn't have a batarang in this movie.
Well, he has one.
He has the batarang. Anybody else freaking out that he has a flipping batarang in his chest?
I really like that, actually.
I wish they confirmed whether that is the Kevin Smith idea that he melted down the gun that killed or turned the gun that killed his parents into a batarang. Or into the symbol on the chest. I wish they said that one way or another. It would have been cool.
I think we got a confirmation that it is a batarang, but I thought it was cool that it was like it's a batarang.
Like, no, regardless, it's cool.
Yeah, like it's a weapon in his chest. It's super cool.
Yeah,
like I don't like that Kevin Smith idea that it's like the gun melted down. Like I feel. I mean,
a melted down gun doesn't necessarily make a great aerodynamic weapon.
It's like symbolic though. It's like a little extra protection around the chest.
I don't like how it blurs like internal logic with theme. I feel like that's.
All right. Well, again, we don't have it confirmed, so I guess it's kind of a win-win. I guess.
It's interesting that they went the route with like Batman's parents' killer hasn't been found. I kind of like that. Like this is the version of a Batman that has his parents' crime was never solved and never probably. And now with Falcone dead, never will be. He'll never actually know if whoever it was who killed his parents. But I like how Batman's gadgets in here are very like there's the typical ones like the grappling gun and stuff, but they're very understated, but they're still very cool. Like I really love the contact eyes that like record everything. That's really cool. And how Catwoman uses it to contact with him later. That's really good.
With all the references and like the details like that, again, like pulling like the contact glasses from the contact computer like lens thing from Corval's and stuff. What really bothers me though, why didn't we call Catwoman's friend Holly Robinson? Like if we're gonna pull all this other stuff, why do we have to come with like a fake like Annika? It's like really we could just call her Holly.
So in regards to Annika, like I feel like that was such a not a wasted plot, but we spent way too much time.
It muddled it. It was did she have a friend here, or was it like was she
Okay.
here just to rob him or to kill him? What was her plan from the whole?
Guys, can I jump in on that because I have something like kind of
All right.
relevant from my
Sure.
experience on that one.
All right, what do you got?
Because I literally saw the first 45 minutes of this movie 3 fucking times because of my experiences. I will totally, absolutely agree. That was one of my big hangups with the Catwoman stuff is that by the end of the movie, the Annika plot just does not feel like it needed. Like it takes up a big portion of that first act of the film, like a big. Chunk
I think
of it.
everything else
Also,
fits.
Catwoman,
But
check
yeah.
your voice messages. I mean, gosh, you could have
Right.
had that message a long time ago.
Welcome to my world.
Well, Dragon, as we established today, it's not necessarily my fault because Skype does not give me notifications, apparently.
One day does not break a pattern, sir.
All right, fair enough.
Okay, so
Anyways.
circling back to, we've been talking a little bit about the the climax and stuff. I just wanted to say what I was getting at, what we kind of brought us to this tangent was, I mean, we end on kind of like a mix between 0 Year and No Man's Land of a status quo for a sequel. Which, as much as I'd love to see Mr. Freeze, I don't know if we necessarily have time to like broaden like any cryogenics like research. And it's like, man, we're flooding, man. We got to deal with that.
Honestly,
Maybe if we froze all the water.
That's the thing. That's the one thing that makes me now think, oh, maybe we're not going to do Mr. Freeze. Hush might make more sense. I don't know. I don't know.
I don't want it to be
It's not
Hush,
gonna be
man.
Hush,
I
man.
really don't.
I mean,
feel
Hush
like
has a story point to it with the father. That's
yeah,
the
but
only
I feel like
reason
it'd
I'm
just be
saying
like a less interesting version of the Riddler.
which is my fear of doing Hush by the same
Yeah.
token. Yes, that's what I'm saying. I'm not fully on board for Hush, but right now it makes plot sense. But I want Mr. Freeze.
I would kind of. I think the natural next point for like a sequel would be just have like a bunch of Bat villains be like warring crime bosses, like ventriloquist, Penguin. I can't think of any other Bat villains that are like.
Well, there's Black Mask. We could do
Well,
a better version of that.
Yeah.
maybe
Black
Max
Mask.
Zeus or whatever. But like, I was thinking like
Great White Shark.
yeah, absolutely. So villains like that, because there's such a power vacuum, and you could really have Batman sort of like he's trying to bring hope, but he also has to make a bargain with the devil, and he has to choose which devil to bargain with, and that could be a very interesting dynamic. Another interesting villain that's like a very obscure villain that showed up in Arkham Knight and was like from an old 80s story. Batman the Cult, Deacon Blackfire.
Oh yeah,
Especially with like the biblical like themes and illusions, like at the end of the first end of this movie, that could be like extended to like Batman being worshipped as like this like godly or demonic figure. But
Mutele in the comments, Mutele Munashiku from the Geekvolution kind of stomping grounds. He's just Maxi Zeus, another good pull. But I think overall, are we kind of agreeing maybe No Man's Land would be a really good like direction for a sequel?
I always thought No Man's Land would make a better TV show than it would a movie because
of course,
it's so
it's such
much
a sweeping event. Yeah,
there's just so much to unpack there. Like, because we kind of already did that with The Dark Knight Rises.
I feel like they will adapt.
I think I want to see Court of Owls personally.
I mean, me too. It's the question of like, is it in the cards at this point?
But like, I mean, we can be economic about this, right? Like, we can do both. Like, the way I see it is, it's like we could probably adapt, a No Man's Land in the same way we sort of adapted in the vein of the way we adapted Long Halloween here, right?
Yeah, we adapted multiple things here, so it is possible.
Yeah. No, it's like you can have elements of No Man's Land, elements of Court of Owls, elements of this.
Like we might start in the midst of No Man's Land for all we know, and then we could transition away from
it would make sense to actually start with No Man's Land given the status quo at the end of this.
Yeah, but I don't think what happened would result in a No Man's Land situation.
Which is why it wouldn't be the full movie, though.
And that's what I'm thinking. How they would translate it would be more of kind of like a Hurricane Katrina kind of like looting and rioting type sort of stuff in the midst of the flooding.
Yeah, basically, it'd be 0 Year with more aftermath.
Yeah,
that's kind of the point. It'd be a little bit more of like, okay, what if 0 Year was kind of our olive branch to getting kind of a No Man's Land, basically sectioning of our mobsters being freaks now with the penguins and your ventriloquists and everything as we're saying, and then perhaps transition to a bigger story, which maybe Mr. Freeze, maybe Perfect World Court of Owls. I mean, the Court of Owls could rise with the destruction of Gotham. Like, hey,
I mean,
we
I
value the
absolutely
city,
think Court of Owls makes sense as far as like rising from the destruction of Gotham. I also think it makes sense as far as like, you know, the story, Bruce having to take on the underbelly of Gotham, and like what's more of an underbelly than the Court of Owls.
Exactly.
I guess this will be my hot take in regards to Batman. I'm not really big into the Court of Owls. I think they're a little bit overrated in terms of Batman villains. I think they're just sort of like a secret evil society that has a somewhat of a cool aesthetic. I mean, for me personally, like, I guess I'll be the minority in this, but like, I would love something like the Black Glove to show up from like.
Oh, I mean,
Black Glove's so convoluted.
Black Glove is in my mind is more interesting, but it doesn't have the star power. Court of Owls is trending, if I was to say it like that, because we have animated movies that has the Court of Owls in there. They're going to be the villains in the Arkham. Or not Arkham, the Gotham Knights game.
Yeah.
So they have a popularity trend that's on the rise where nobody's talking about the Black Glove anymore. I will agree. Here's what I'll say about the Court of Owls. The original issue Court of Owls is so amazing. It is one of the Labyrinth scene is one of the best things in Batman comic books of all time. City of Owls, the follow-up, kind of sucks. It's
okay. I will say I'm going to fight you on that a little bit because they're one story. All right. I know they broke it up needlessly into two stupid trades because DC was being that way back in the day. It was 11 issues, and that's the way they published it. So
fair enough. But I'm just saying I like the first trade more than the second trade.
No, I agree. Regarding the whole Court of Owls, Black Glove sort of dichotomy is I think they should probably go Court of Owls because I mean they're both secret societies. I think we need to have a movie where Batman fights a secret society by now, right? Like, let's just do that. But we've never done that in a movie before. But I also think that
Batman Serpent Society.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, regardless, it sounds like the opportunity. If Gotham's had a major shakeup, a secret society could rise from the ashes.
Hold on. All right, but I think that the difference between Black Glove and Court of Owls is that Court of Owls.
Black Hand?
No, it's Black Glove.
Black Glove.
Black Glove.
Okay.
Yeah, so,
sorry, continue.
Black Glove. Court of Owls is specific to Gotham. Black Glove is worldwide, and so I think that's maybe why they would favor something like Court of Owls. And like you were saying, Lazerdude, they kind of have the heat behind their name right now. Now, I would love if they go Black Glove because the 3-part storyline where Batman and Robin are stuck on an island with a bunch of Batman imitators and they're all getting picked off one by one. I think that is legit the best Batman story that's ever been told. I think that is amazing.
Really?
I love J.H. Williams III on art. Perfection.
Oh, the art's amazing in that book. Yeah,
but
for sure.
I love it. It's Batman Agatha Christie lock room murder mystery. Yes, please. I love that. And so I would love if they did Black Glove, but I think you're right, Lazerdude. The heat's behind Court of Owls.
Honestly, I wouldn't mind if the Court of Owls, when they show up in a Reeves Batman movie, is basically a composite of the Court of Owls and the Black Glove, certain elements.
Yeah,
of it.
That's a good point. Yeah,
because the biggest problem with the Court of Owls was the ending. We're just and all the Court of Owls died, and that's it. And
to your point, Lazerdude, I think the Court of Owls' first story is great. And every single appearance they've done after that has not been great.
No, for sure. But, I mean, I think that they have the potential to be great. So, if they could take some elements from the Black Hand or the Black Glove and morph it into the Court of Owls, I think it could be. I think the problem is they just don't know how to make Batman fight a room full of rich, snobby people. And you know what? I say let him go ham on those old, rich, snobby people's butts. Okay? He's going to see where he comes and is oh, I guess we're under arrest. Batman closes the door. Not yet, you're not.
He drops the saucer on the little fire in the room. You've eaten well.
Yes.
But actually, if you think about it, so the Court of Owls has the Talons, right?
Yeah.
And the Talons are put on ice when they're not being used.
Yes.
Mr. Freeze connection.
Mhm.
Boom, we did it, guys.
I know,
we did
that's
it.
what I've been, yeah.
Except
right.
don't adapt the Mr. Freeze storyline in the City of Owls. That was
No,
is the
don't do
worst.
Well,
that.
yeah, it's,
Well,
look, it's a can of worms. We can't.
Also, as another connection, like Dick Grayson, like had he not been taken by Bruce, he was also like looked at by the Court of Owls. So maybe that's where he can like bring in Robin.
Yeah, maybe. Let's do Robin already. Let's do it. Let's do Robin. We're ready.
All right.
Yeah,
So,
I'm good for it.
so guys, just a big thing we should talk about before we get out of here. The Joker tease officially. So, how do we feel about the whole tease of Barry Koenig as the
Worst
Joker?
part of the movie.
Okay.
I love the casting. I love the casting. I just do not think that it worked as far as it felt very sequel bait in a movie that really did not need, like, I honestly feel like this would be a better movie without it, just because hear me out. I just think that the sequel bait just reminds me that this is a Hollywood product. And like 99% of this movie does not feel like a typical Hollywood product. Does that make sense?
To piggyback off of your thought, because I agree with you with that, is that for me, the movie has two things that kind of cheapen the ending, in which the ending is that the Batman, he saves the people, he kind of inspires hoping that lady's being put on the, forget if it's the lady or the kid who's being put on the gurney, and he looks off into the distance, and like, that's your ending, that's your effing credits moment, to quote Kevin Smith. Like that's your credits, because again, it says everything that essentially that Conner was saying earlier in terms of what we're saying with the whole with the Bruce Wayne thing we're trying to say in terms of the point is Batman's making the big change, he's becoming the inspiring figure, and perhaps going to do more with Bruce Wayne in the future. But everything you need is kind of in that moment, and then we have two bits that kind of like we have the Joker tease, which I mean, if you want to make that your post credit, fine, but then you have like the Catwoman, Batman goodbye. It's like, well, we know she's going to come back, so it's kind of a pointless ending. It's basically, I mean, I get they're trying to say the whole like, don't like Gotham City's beyond hope. No, it's not. It's like, well, I think we kind of said that perfectly with that last image. We're kind of doubling back a little here,
Well,
So
yeah.
No, it's basically multiple endings to me. Go on.
I was just saying, like, you kind of do need that scene, because then if you're not, then the next one's like, oh yeah, and then we didn't hang out after that ever again. That's so that you need it. But more importantly, I would think this Joker tease wouldn't feel too bad if Batman Begins didn't already do it.
Yes.
And Begins did it perfectly. The
Yes.
ending of Batman Begins is like the best part.
Yes, you just flip over the card and that's all you need. But you've already done it. And if you're trying not to draw yourself comparisons to the Nolan films, that is a terrible thing to do, to end your movie on a Joker tease when Christopher Nolan's first Batman movie ended with a Joker tease.
And it was poorly shot by. Did you guys think this was poorly shot? Oh, I'm sorry, Lazerdude. Go on.
I was going to say, Lazerdude, I completely agree. Yes. Okay. So I think I would say there's not a bad scene in the movie. And I say that because I feel like the movie I was watching turned off for 2 minutes, and then some terrible fan film played for 2 minutes that just happened to get like Paul Dano somehow, and then the movie started again. And I was like, oh okay.
Wow, your theater experiences was more confusing than.
I mean, look, I know I'm the one person on planet Earth that thinks Spider Meme is really, really bad. But like, I just, it felt like I was watching like Spider-Man No Way Home again. I was like, wait, what? What are we doing? No. But so, like, what's that?
I want to add to that. The ending scene reminded me a lot of like the ending post-credit stuff for the Amazing movies, where there's like the shadow.
Leave him alone.
Yeah, there's just like, oh god, y'all just teasing up. Oh, here's going to be the big Spider-Man movie.
He ran over to the other corner of the room that they couldn't
stop fires, and they lit it the same way. Seriously, I hated the way they shot it, because I can't get a good look at Koenig as the Joker to form an opinion.
Yeah,
like, I got to see the whole movie again now, because
for a movie.
You know what? If you wanted to do this, I think you said a Red Blue Day, like less is more. Why don't you just have like Riddler crying as he was, and just have a laughter. Just have laughter in the background. Have the Riddler look up. Boom, credits. Like if you're gonna do it, just do that. Don't give us a whole soliloquy.
My thing is, this scene is horrible. I hate this scene. I hate this scene so much, because it's like, you're watching like the writing. Okay, here's what it feels like. It feels like a studio executive said
Sandman and Venom team up. That's what it feels
yeah,
like.
it's like, well, you have 3 of the 4 villains from Batman 66. Where's the Joker? You got to put the Joker in there. And they're like, and they look around and they just like throw something on the piece of paper and they're like, well, we tore down all of our sets. So,
I mean, look,
quick, get behind the door, Paul Dano. And let's just do this like crappy, like claustrophobic handheld camera, and like the sun from the window is like blowing out, and you can't hardly see anything. I'm like, okay, Greig Fraser's like cinematography is so good in this. I refuse to believe he shot that scene. Like it's that ugly. Like I hated it. It was like a bad fan film. That's I just did not like it.
Okay, well, look, here's where I'm at on the scene itself. Is that one? I'm really not sold on the casting of the Joker, at least at this juncture. I got to see him in action. Because when I heard that, one that bothers me already is with the fact that the DC movies that they cast a guy who looks like Ezra Miller, which is going to be a whole can of worms in itself. With Barry Koenig, who just kind of has
Barry
that.
Keoghan.
It's Keegan.
It's Barry Keoghan.
Oh, Keoghan. Okay. I'm getting it so wrong.
Keoghan looks like if you took Ty Sheridan and Ezra Miller and threw them in a blender.
Yeah, exactly. Precisely. So the point being, I mean, from Eternals, it's
Am I the only one who really loves the casting here?
I think it's a good casting choice. I like his voice. I don't like his laugh very much, but I like his voice.
Yeah. I just think if you watch The Killing of a Sacred Deer, I like he.
Sadly, I have seen that movie. Yeah.
Well, regardless of how you feel about that movie, I think he's super menacing in that movie, if anything else.
Have you seen The Green Knight? He's really good in that too.
Yeah, totally.
The only thing I've only seen him in 2 things. I've seen
Lazerdude. He's the guy who like kidnaps or like steals all of Dev Patel's stuff. Like he was walking across him with the battleground.
Okay, yeah, I thought so. I just was like, he wasn't in the movie all that long.
Yeah, no, he
only has like one scene.
Yeah, you know what? It's funny. I feel like now Batman fans, no matter who is cast, are now like hesitant to call BS on the casting. You know, like that's like Michael Keaton as Batman. That can't be good. That is
but Lazerdude,
Heath Ledger is the Joker. That can't be good.
Yeah, so there's all okay.
But we just had that again with Robert Pattinson. I thought
I didn't say a thing.
I was fully on board for Robert Pattinson, but
I think more people were, but I think people thought that other people were going to be against it because I didn't see anybody posting crap about Robert Pattinson as Batman.
Yeah,
but I feel like everyone expected there to be, so everyone just said, "Oh yeah, everyone hated Robert Pattinson as the cast." Choice, but I didn't see that anywhere.
Okay, I did, but
regardless,
it's because Robert Pattinson has actually been in some damn good movies before this.
Yeah, have you guys seen?
Oh, by the way, one of the Easter eggs I noticed, one of the convenience stores in this movie is literally called Good Times.
Yeah, hell yeah!
Yeah, I love that.
So let me say this. So again, with the it's look, being trepidatious of whoever we cast Joker, not an original opinion. It's kind of happened with every person who's ever played the Joker and or Batman. Period. It's like every time there's always like the casting, like, oh god, it's gonna be the end of it. Who have we got?
I feel like people were down for Joaquin.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's like the one break in the chain, but everyone else is always between that and Nicholson was the first time we really. I don't know. The point being, it's always been like
I ruined it.
with so many, there have just been there's like a constant.
Ben Affleck too, to a certain extent.
So my point being is there's always been like a case of that, almost always. And with Koenig, I mean, first time I've really kind of truly felt it for me was with I don't butcher in the name Koenig. Anyway, Mutali.
Rohith, you were going to say something?
I was going to say, like, Connor, why is your Warner Brothers producer voice sound similar to George Lucas?
I listened to so much Red Letter Media commentaries, and whenever Rich Evans does producer voice, he accidentally slips into George Lucas. So I feel like I was just sort of maybe doing that on accident.
All right, so.
Joker, he's a funnier character than we've ever had. We just get him right, we can get the whole thing working.
This is gonna get you, Batman.
Robin's a funnier character than we've ever had.
You're saying Blue Dragon?
Oh,
yeah,
no.
yes. So what I'm trying to say.
Hold on, who is Dexter Jettster playing? Is he going to be Gordon in the next movie?
Anywho, so sorry, what I'm trying to say with Barry Koenig here is that Reeves has said that there's kind of like there's a man who laughs kind of proto setup with this guy. He's had an encounter with Batman. I'm assuming would be kind of like he probably had like a casual encounter with like a guy trying to poison the reservoir, and he's been thrown Arkham, and it might be kind of a reintroduction via Telltale by that point. So I mean that intrigues me. The fact that he's had an encounter with Batman put him in Arkham is kind of underestimated. They haven't really developed the whole thing yet. And so the fact that it's like doing a Joker that, again, I'm taking some of this on good faith because I couldn't get a good look at him to say what the deal with his face is, because they're saying they're doing like a Conrad Veidt sort of like literal man who laughs thing with it. I don't know. So the concept and Reeves having a plan for this guy intrigues me. It's just the actor himself. I've only seen him in Dunkirk and Eternals, and he's been okay in those, but I don't know if he's got Joker material. And it's kind of like I got to see it when I see it, sort of thing.
I know.
I mean, as long as he doesn't have grills, I'm fine.
Yeah.
I know. I am like just digging my grave further and further for a certain audience, but Eternals, that was a great movie. That one was.
I agree with you, Connor.
I still haven't seen it. No,
you're not alone, Connor.
Okay, thank you. I don't know. I feel like I just accidentally became a Marvel contrarian, where I'm like, what? I mean, I thought Shang-Chi was okay. Yeah, but Eternals, hell yeah! And then
Connor, that absolutely was your 2021 arc.
I know. I feel
was transforming into the Marvel contrarian.
I feel Contrarian like Nielsen.
Okay,
the Contrarian is actually a good name for a villain.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Connor is the villain.
Yeah, I don't know. I hated the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I hated Loki. I hated What If. I
think he's my arch enemy, technically.
I know. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I couldn't help it.
Anywho,
so what do you think of Boba Fett? No, I'm kidding. We don't need
Boba Fett. Okay.
No. I'm joking.
It was the best schlock ever. I laughed my ass off the entire time.
Wow, you are a contrarian. Anyways, what do you guys think of the Batmobile?
Oh, it's such a good Batmobile. I love it.
You guys, come on, like. I'm sorry, guys, but we need to wrap this up.
All right, Tiki, I want you to
get at the end of the movie for a while now.
Tiki, I want you to sweep. Is there any pertinent comments you want to round us out with?
Well, first of all, guys, I just want to acknowledge in the comments that we've been getting a ton of comments, and I really appreciate the engagement. There's just so many people in this discussion, and everyone's kind of trying to. I'm not saying you guys are like deliberately trying to talk over yourselves, but like it's hard to pull comments when there's so many people and the conversation's going so many different ways. So if y'all feel like I'm ignoring you, I'm really not. It's just hard to pull when we have so many people here. So I just want to acknowledge that. But honestly, Dragon, no, I've been keeping an eye on the comments, and I don't really think there's that much that Atomic Beast asks if we think Warner Brothers is trying to set up the Batverse akin to the Spider-Verse, and I don't know about that.
No.
I think it's probably going to be more so of like a multiverse thing within the Flash movie.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think we're good on the comments, Dragon.
All right. Well, let's again, first off, let's thank our panel. And let's thank the folks in the comments. I think we'll probably round this out because I think people kind of know how we feel about the movie.
Yeah, I really don't think if we did like, okay, let's go around for final thoughts, we'd be here for another 15, 20 minutes.
I think we get it.
All around.
Yeah, I'd say thumbs up, 7 out of 10. It's pretty good.
All right. I'll give my score in the Your Movie Sucks voice. I would give it an 8.5. I'm leaning more towards an 8 than a 9. All right.
I put 7.5.
Okay. Dragon Rohith, just for the hell of it, your numerical scores.
I will concur with you, Tiki. 8.5, but I'm thinking leaning more to a 9 than.
Okay. Dragon,
I'm kind of in the 8 to 8.5. I'm being really generous. I think I might stick with 8 just to be safe. I might stick with 8.
Okay. All right. So yeah, big thanks to our panel here. I feel like things got a little chaotic in places, but the fact that this is under 2.5 hours is, I honestly think that's a good sign. I think we got it in at a reasonable length. So big thanks to our panel, Lazerdude, Conner, and Rohith. I truly think that this is maybe one of the biggest all-star panels that we've had on the channel so far this year. So I thank all you guys for showing up for this.
We are the Justice League of your guests.
Indeed.
It's,
With John Kelly,
DCEU version, not the DCEU or Zack Snyder version.
Yeah, we're the good.
Yeah.
Anyway,
thank you guys so much for having me. I know I was a late addition to the panel, but yeah, it was great.
No, it's all good, Conner. Happy you were able to make it.
Good to see you again, Blue Dragon, Tiki, Rohith. It's good to meet you, Lazerdude. Yeah, fun time.
And then big thanks to me, Tally. Definitely not John Kelling, and also for a very brief cameo, Atomic Beast. All right, I think that's about it. Have a good night, everyone.
bye.
Ciao.
Here's
Adios.
the Batman.
Stay out of my room, Alfred.